Is this a go-to meeting? Because some people are calling in, they need to be on Zoom.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can. It's
Okay,
on GoToWebinar,
because
and I think it's on the website.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I just got an announcement that said that I would only be able to listen. So I wanted to
All
make
right, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to Plaistow's Board of Selectmen meeting for January 11th, 2021, our very first meeting of the new year. Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Select Chair, Ms. Hart.
Here?
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Talion.
Yeah.
Selectman Mr. Kishka.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Blinn.
He is excused.
Selectman Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
And please note for the record, joining us remotely, we have Town Manager, Mr. Pearson, and the Finance Director, Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Colby.
All right, thank you so much. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes for December 21st of 2020. So may I have a motion on the floor for approval for that, please?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Board of Selectmen for December 21st, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, Julian?
Nope.
No, all right. So seeing no discussion, I'd like to take a vote to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries 4-0-0. I am going to go a little bit out of turn. The next item agenda is public comment. However, we do have a public hearing. So I'd like to do that first, and then we can go into public comment. So I would like to call this public hearing to order at 6:33 p.m. And it is to discuss a water bond, a $450,000 bond that we are going to be posting to our warrant. And it's basically an incentive to our citizens who wish to hook up to potable water and may not be able to have the chunk of money to be able to do it all up front. So before I open this up for public comment and/or discussion, I'm going to put Mark on the spot and ask him to just give all of us here and the people who are listening and watching just a very brief overview of what this is about, if you don't mind, sir.
Yes, I think that you really encapsulated it with your opening comments, Madam Chairman. It is a bond that is exclusively written as an incentive program for people that cannot otherwise afford to pay the upfront costs. It is a borrowing that the town would borrow, and the cost would be passed through to the people that apply for this program and essentially borrow the money to connect to the system. The repayment would be the amount that they borrowed and interest that would be put on their quarterly water bill until such time as they have paid back the amount that they have borrowed. And the loan would be recorded on the deed in case property was sold. So it would go along with the property to say a successive owner. And the reason that we did this was it was brought to our attention that what happens if somebody wants to connect and they can't afford to connect? So this is a program that has been instituted in other communities with great success. And we went with a beta test amount of $450,000 for the first, for 2021, as we roll the program to connect people up in either late 2021 or early 2022. And the question was asked about, well, what happens if more people want to join this program and the funding runs out? And the answer is that as we move along in 2021, if this passes and the money does run out, we would just put in another warrant article for next year, because we'd have an idea of how many people want to also participate in this program, and we would bring up another bond article for that exact purpose next year. So with that, I will stop at this point in case there's any questions.
So I'm going to open this up, obviously, to the public. There are a couple of people here physically with us, and I'm not sure if you would like to speak or ask questions to the water bond. Either one of you? No? Oh, go ahead. Come on up, and your name and address. You know the drill.
Jim Peck from Oak Ridge Road, since I'm here for public comment. I just thought I'd ask how many people, maybe I missed Mark, how many people would be able to get this bond?
Well, Mr. Peck, we modeled it basically on the premise of somewhere between 45 and say 55 people in the first round would be interested, and we just based it on, as I said, this beta test. We went with the low number, which was really a guess that how many people might want to access it as we connect up the system initially. If nothing else, it's a way for people to just finance it over long term instead of coming up with all the money up front. We have not figured out all of the exact fine details on qualification for this, but like I said, if 45, 50 people are interested and this money is committed to them, we would very quickly find out how many people are interested and then do the second round next year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any more people from either the public or who wish to call in to ask a question with regards to this bond? And if I don't hear from anybody in the first couple of minutes, Jay, one of our selectmen, has a question or comment. Go ahead.
This is a question for Mark. I somewhat know the answer to this question, but I just wanted to ask it in public. Mark, can you explain the types of options that we would secure for taking this type of bond? Are we taking we can take a large amount, or we can get a line of credit? So I was just wondering if maybe you could explain that a little more.
Right. Well, I'm going to defer to Greg, but Madam Chairman, do you have a phone number that you can announce for people to call in to ask questions?
Yep, it's on your screen if you're watching TV. It's 560-8337. And so if you wish to call in, yep, that's fine.
I will defer to Finance Director Greg Colby on that question of the type of bond or borrowing.
So with regards to the bond, I think there's probably three options. One would be to issue the full amount through the bond bank, which at their last issue that they did 6 months ago, it was a lower interest rate of 0.86. A second option might be the state revolving fund, which is a little bit higher interest, but the problem with that is it's a competitive process whereby we would need to fill out an application. I think the engineer said roughly 80 or 90 people put in applications with their last go around, and only 14 or so got awarded it. So it's a very tough process. And then I think the third option would be using like a line of credit from a local bank, but the interest rate on that would be a much higher 3 to 4%. So, we'll gauge interest and get an idea. I mean, if we have, 45 or 50 people that express interest right out of the gate, and it looks like it's useful to issue the full amount as a GO bond with the cheap interest, I think we would do that, versus if, there weren't many interested, we might look to a line of credit. So that's, unfortunately, it's kind of up in the air, but if, first step is to get the approval, and then we'll go from there.
Go ahead, Julian.
I just want to bring up the point, and again, I may not already have some of the answers already, but what is the deadline for that decision to be made to do line of credit, et cetera? And we know that the water system probably won't go online until the fall.
Or later.
Or later. So we'd have time to make that decision, but what's the deadline to make the financial decision about line of credit or the 0.86%?
Well, the bond bank usually issues twice a year, usually the end of June, beginning of July, and then in December, January. So I think the deadline would be probably the end of May to the middle of June to take advantage of the summer bond sale.
And I
Line
think
of
by
credit,
then,
we could probably operate, anytime.
and I think by then, we'll probably have the first group of people interested in doing it, probably have some names on the table, hopefully, by that time.
We have to get the bond passed first.
Yes.
And that brings me actually to the point that I just want to reiterate yet again, because we've said it a number of times. This is not mandatory. This is a voluntary program that the town is doing as an incentive for citizens. It is not taxable to the taxpayers, and I'll say that one more time. It is not taxable to the taxpayers. So we do need a 3/5 majority to pass this because it is a bond. And so I'm going to speak from personal experience. I'm living at the wrong end of town, and I'm going to be one of the last people to get hooked up to water. But even though it may take a couple of years for me to actually get hooked up to water, I would be happy to support all of my neighbors and the rest of the citizens who do want to take advantage of this. So even though you may not need it or use it at this point in time, we would really respectfully ask you to support the people who do want to use it, and please vote positively for this because there will be no tax impact to this.
And I get the same comment. The water line doesn't make it to my house.
I know.
But I also have a fabulously working well so far.
I do not.
It was built upon an old town spring. But yes, it's a tragedy that if we don't allow the other people who can't afford to do it right away because we did a no vote, it would be a real tragedy if it didn't get 3/5 vote. It doesn't hurt anybody to vote yes. It only helps people in this town.
All right, so Greg, go ahead.
Just a simple question. Mark, was anything done, either yourself or the engineering company that we're working with, to actually solicit a number of people who would like to be hooked up? Have we done anything that would give us a more stable number or a better number?
We have collected all of the interested people that have contacted us through our outreach program and recorded their level of interest, but no, because this is the first step, is to get this incentive program, and then after, if this successfully passes, we would reach out to that list of people and let everybody know that this is available, and then we would take applications for it. But there really is no sense in going out to advertise to people about this incentive program if it doesn't pass.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So are there, yeah, go ahead, Jay.
And when was that outreach done? What year?
Last year, I think.
We have outreach to people starting in 2018 with all of our water meetings, and anybody that has contacted us during that time, right up until the current, anybody right to this day that contacts us, we put them on a spreadsheet, we answer their questions, we collect as much information as they would give us, and as you may or may not know, we actually reached out to every resident in town with a survey about their level of interest of water, if they front the system now, if they don't front the system, how are you interested in water? Are you mildly interested, or are you not interested? So this has been an ongoing campaign that we organized, and I organized starting in 2018. So it's always been an outreach to everybody, and we continue that by receiving requests for information or inquiries. We're turning the corner to actually connect the system up. And we expect that there'll be a flurry of activity from these people that have been just waiting.
Okay, one last question, Julian.
Also, add, correct me if I'm wrong, the people who already have polluted water, who are under the BD site and the other ones, do already have their connections paid for, and those will not be added to this list, right?
That's correct.
Well, I'm going to try to answer that question. I'm going to answer it with the facts that I know. Around the Beatty site, they've been connected through Pennachuck Water over a number of different circumstances, either a while ago or recently. And that Pennachuck system is going to exist. It's going to continue to exist. The question is, and we are waiting word from Pennachuck, is if Pennachuck wants to connect up to the new potable water system through a master meter, and then would change the water for those people to potable water coming from our system and not from their wells. But that has yet to be determined. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, actually, it doesn't, because I was talking about this money to have home connections made. So they already have home connections, so the MBT site, sites, like across from Dunkin' Donuts, those places would already have the connections
Okay,
made
hold on one
to
second,
the
and
system
once our
when the time
selectman
comes,
who wants
under
to-
my
Okay,
understanding.
You need to give us your name and your address.
Yeah, so
okay?
two different things. So the
No,
connections
wait till you
in the
go
system
on to
around the site
speakerphone
have
so the
already
public can
been
hear you.
made.
Okay, so hold on.
So
all right?
that's the answer to that question. And the sites around the Dunkin' Donuts is MTBE connections that the state is going to fund, and the state's going to connect those people, so there's no need for them to participate in this incentive program.
Yes, so what we're really talking about as far as this bond is for people who don't fall into those categories, the regular people who need drinking water.
Correct. Correct. If they qualify for MTBE, they already know it, and there's a fund set up for them to be connected at no cost to them. If you have new pipes running in front of your house under the new system, or you had pipes running in front of your house under the old system that existed, you can now connect to the water if you choose to, and that's what this incentive program would help you with if you did not have all of the money necessary to connect to the system. It would be financed through this bond over the long term, so that you'd only pay for it quarterly instead of coming up with the entire amount. Now, just so that people know that are listening at home, the connection costs depend on how far away your house is from the street, the lineal feet, and then there's connection fees, and there's MSW charges, that is, initial charges for the capacity of the water. But it can range from probably a low of $4,000 to connect to possibly $10,000 to connect. It all depends on your individual circumstances. There is no one price fits all for connecting each house, because every house has different scenarios.
All right, thank you for that good answer.
Okay, so I do have a caller in, and I'm going to put this person on speakerphone who wants to ask a question about the potable water. So, sir, you are on speakerphone. Could you kindly give us your name and address and ask your question?
Yeah, do you want that now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Gary Hartford. I live at 139 Sweet Hill Road. I abut the tank for the water tower here.
Okay, can you spell your last name for our recording secretary?
Hartford, Hartford.
Thank you, sir. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my concern is from the day they started tearing up out back there, I was talking to engineers about hooking up to the system. I also I had a meeting with the town manager, because we missed the town meeting when it was first being discussed about tying into it.
Yeah.
And I made a concern about getting on a list. And when this was going to happen, he assured me that nothing would happen in the near future. And immediately, once something was going to happen, they would be knocking on doors like crazy. Now I'm watching your meeting now, and I'm hearing about a list of people and all this stuff. I'm just wondering how come, and you say you sent out surveys. We never received a survey, and trust me, we've been looking for it. We've had nothing. So I don't know what this list is. I'd like to get my name on it. I've lived in this town for 45 years. It's torn up our neighborhood out back here. It's a mess. So I would just like to know when they're going to put the water line down and when we can tie into it. The cost is something else, but we should at least have a date or fall. I'm here in fall, spring, summer. Could you give us some real information on what's going on?
Sure. Thank you for that comment, and I'm going to turn that back over to Mark, because he has regular meetings with our water engineers and Obviously, as you know, it's wintertime, and a lot of the streets are not able to be dug up, and I believe they have suspended some of this operation until spring, until the ground thaws. But I'm going to turn that over to Mark, and he'll be able to give you a little bit more information. But this is, kind of we're kind of feeling our way as we go along, so.
I understand, but the list should be something pretty basic. How
Sure.
are we gonna do that and when?
Okay, sure. Go ahead. Mark, could you address this person?
Yes, so I'm gonna, there's a few questions in there. So I'll start with the first one. So we sent out surveys to every property owner in 2018. So that's my answer to that. If someone didn't receive a survey, I'm not gonna speak to that. We sent them with a postcard, and we sent them to everybody that owned property in Plaistow in 2018. The second point was about, say, the timing of the system, when it's going to be up and running. Well, that hasn't been determined yet because that depends on the construction schedule for 2021 and when the pump station will be done and when all of the pipes are in the ground and when the flushing and disinfecting of the current pipes happens, and then when the system can go online. So that's the answer to one of those questions. One of the other questions is going to be about a list of the people. There is no list. There is a spreadsheet of everybody that's contacted us and expressed an interest. There is no list until such time as this warrant article should pass. If it passes, we will then establish a list. And then, as I said, if there's more people on the list than there are funds available, we would immediately look towards 2022 for a subsequent warrant article to incentivize the second group of people. So if I've missed a question, if you can refresh my memory on any more. That was 3 questions I answered. I don't know if there was more in there. As far
Sir,
as
I think,
Don't answer my question.
sir,
Don't answer my question. I want to know how these people got on the list.
sir, I believe Mr. Pearson said there was not a list, that it was a spreadsheet.
What's the difference? It's a list of people.
Well, we can check to see.
Potato, it's a list.
All right, if you could let us finish, and that would be good. All right.
Ragtime from that guy, Mark.
So if we can check and make sure that you are on that spreadsheet to express an interest in doing this, I have your phone number. I will check on it first thing tomorrow morning, and I will get back to you and make sure that you are on that list. Will that be satisfactory to you?
Fine, but
Okay.
I don't want to be dismissed. I'm a 70-year-old man living in this town for 45 years. And I've asked multiple times about this list, and now all of a sudden, so enough's enough.
Okay, so we'll double check.
What I care about is the list. When I have to get on it to get tied into this thing. I don't care about the cost or any of the other malarkey. You must have some kind of idea when this whole thing is going to take place.
Okay, are you finished so that I can answer you?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay, so I will make sure personally that we check the spreadsheet, make sure your name is on the list. And as far as when this is going to go online, we can't give you a definitive answer.
I want to know when the names have to be on the list.
All right, I will get back to you.
Make sure I'm on that list. That's my only problem. Other than that, it's okay.
All right, I promise you.
Come across like this.
I promise you that I will personally get back to you tomorrow once I find out whether you are on the list or not. And so hopefully that will be okay, and I will get back to you tomorrow as soon as I get that information, okay?
All right.
Okay.
I appreciate your help.
No problem. Okay, any other questions that you might have at this point? All right, so I'm going to sign off.
I'm okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Good night.
All right, guys. Thank
Good
you.
night. You're welcome. Okay. All righty. So is there any other person that wants to call in or make any other comments? One more, I'm going to allow one more comment.
One thing I want to explain to the person who was just on the phone, that Mr. Pearson wasn't cutting him off. Mr. Pearson probably couldn't hear them while he was talking on the remote.
I'm sure.
So that's one thing I saw in this conversation possibly.
Whoops, somebody else is calling.
The other thing, I would like to know, if we have a first come, first served list or whatever, I would like to know officially what that list is, that everybody's confident that the list exists.
Okay, and
the
would you like to
people who
make
really
a
want to
comment
get on
about the
and
public
obligate
hearing?
themselves now, if we can do so, let them obligate themselves now in some way, that they say, I am going to sign up, and do I need the help or I don't need the help?
Right.
And then we'll have an actual list, and then people will know if they can get the help or not, because we will be limited to a certain amount of funding.
All right,
So can we do that, Mark?
okay.
To my understanding, if the
All right.
bond does
I'm
pass,
gonna do this
then
if
we'd
you're
have a
comfortable
public
with this,
list.
Mr. Ingles.
Right.
I'm gonna
That
put
these
you
people
on
are on the
speakerphone,
list.
and I would like you to
Yeah, I just know,
ask
but people who want to
our
connect to
manager
water,
something
even if it isn't for this
a little bit
help,
more,
financial help,
information on
probably would
this.
say, I want to obligate myself, I do want to hook up to the water.
Is that all right?
We can do that now, and they can
Hold on.
start doing their piping and whatever now possibly.
All right, are you guys done?
Sure.
All right, so we have another person on the phone. His name is Mr. Larry Ingalls. Sir, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, can you kindly give us your name and your address and ask Mr. Pearson your question, and hopefully he'll be able to give you some kind of an answer.
Is there any chance you could put the phone next to the speaker so I can actually hear the caller? Because I'm not able to hear the caller.
All right, where are we here? Is there a speaker on here?
Microphone.
It is a microphone.
I don't see it.
No, don't.
Your microphone.
So, all right, so I'm going to put my phone right up to the microphone, Mark. All right, go ahead, Mr. Ingalls.
This is Larry Ingalls, 7 Elm Street, Plaistow, which is right across the street from the town hall. I wanted to find out if I could get an estimate, or somebody can give me an idea of what my cost is going to be. Because of my age, at 75, it decides whether I want to spend the money.
So the answer is, Mr. Ingalls, is if you could call tomorrow DeVos at the town hall, and she can try to help you with that information. The only thing we can give you at this time is what we expect the lineal footage cost to be and the other associated costs, and we would call up Underwood Engineers to try to estimate that for you. But it would only be an estimate because the actual connection to your house would have to be performed by a private contractor. The town would bring a curb stop to the property line in front of your house, and then it would be a subcontractor that you hire to connect up your house, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps because I think you know where Elm Street is, so I got a fire hydrant right across the street from me, so that's where the water line's
Yes.
going to have to come in, so they're going to have to go across the road and then probably 30 feet into the house, if that.
Right. So if you could contact DeVos tomorrow at Town Hall, she's extension 202, she can help you navigate and hopefully get you an approximate cost based on the information that you have.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, did you have any more questions, Mr. Ingalls?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you so much for calling in. I'm going to turn you off again, okay?
Okay,
All right, good night.
good night.
Yes, Julian?
Yeah, my understanding was, Mark, that we were going to try to get some approved engineers to do or contractors, because it may involve disturbing the roads and things, and we want to make sure we have approved contractors that we approve of, and that it is done right, because it could affect the entire water system if it was to leak incorrectly or something. And I think it's a good idea to get the lists now, get some estimates for these people now, and not wait till the last couple months before it happens, so they can plan their finances. And we also can plan the installations, because if all of a sudden we get 100, 200 installations, that's going to be a lot of work going on. And I think we should start to plan for this so that in the spring they can start, even though the water's not supplied to the pipelines yet, they could actually possibly start their connections. So
Okay.
it's not all done at the last minute, all in one or couple weeks before we turn it on.
Right.
Because that could be a nightmare, because there's only so many people that can do it.
Okay, so excellent comment. Comment is noted, and we will move on further from there. Is there anyone else that wishes to call in to ask questions? And if not, I am going to close this public hearing at 7 p.m. I guess there's one more comment. Come on up. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Name and address again, please.
It's actually not my question, but people knew I was here. Sent me the question. The question is, what about in the warrant wording where it gives the BOS Betterment Authority? They're concerned about that. Can somebody explain what that is? Apparently, there's a clause in there on Betterment Authority.
Yes, we discussed that last meeting, but we'll probably repeat it.
Mark, did you hear that?
Yes,
Okay.
that is language that is saying, sometimes legalese makes something simple so complicated, but the legalese language about betterment is saying exactly what I said before, but just in legal terms, that the cost will be borne by the person that decides to access the incentive program, and the betterment is going to be the actual charge that would go on to their quarterly bill to repay this loan. So the only betterment is to the individual who decides to borrow this money through the town, the pass-through of the town. And the betterment charge is actually the amount to pay back the money.
That makes sense. So it's only that one person. I think people, when they see that term, it kind of gets them excited, because typically that would be the BOS being able to force people to pay something they don't want. It sounds like in this case, if the clause is written the way you said, it's only for that one person.
Right. And I just
And
want
it- and it is for that purpose.
I just also, all right, go ahead. Hello? Hello?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, hi. Do you have a question on our water bond? Okay, can I get your name, sir? Okay. Mr. Bolduc, do you mind if we put you on speakerphone to answer the question? Or to ask the question? Okay, hold on one second. We just have to finish up one more comment from Mr. Peck, and then I'll put you on speakerphone, okay? Thanks.
I'm actually all set.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so the next person that is on to ask a question is Mr. Ralph Bolduc. I know you're a neighbor of mine. I don't remember the number on Main Street that you're at, but if you could tell us your address and then you can ask your question, sir, that would be great.
271.
Say it again, 271 Main Street?
Yes.
Okay, Mark, can you hear this? Okay, go ahead, ask
Just
your question,
barely.
sir.
Okay. What I would be interested in knowing is how much water pressure we're going to have. Is it going to eliminate our pump and tank in the cellar, and we can go right off the pressure from the line, or do we still end up with our pump and tank?
No.
Okay, so did you hear that question, Mark?
Yes, so although this is not related to the bond, this is related to the operation of a system, I will still answer the question. If
Thank
you're
you.
tied into municipal water, then the pressure comes from a municipal system, and the well is no longer connected to the potable water part of your house.
So the answer is no, you're not going to use your pump.
Okay,
Which
so
means you
you
don't
don't
need
need
the
the pump, basically, is what I think Mr. Pearson's
Or the
saying. Is that
tank.
correct, Mark?
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right,
You may still need an expansion tank, but
any other questions that you have, sir?
No, all set.
All right, thank you for calling in, and I'm going to cut you, all right, and I'm going to close you out. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to take, because we'll be here all night, one question from Jay and one last question from Julian,
I'm
if you
willing
have
to be
any.
here all night to answer
All right,
questions.
so
Yeah,
go
I'll
ahead,
stay
Jay.
here all night if that's what it takes. Since
Whatever
this
it
is a
takes.
public hearing, should we read the warrant article as well?
We're going to be doing that because we do have warrant discussion further on down on the agenda. So, I mean, it's up to the board.
I
You
think
want to
it-
read, excuse me, please. If you want to read the warrant article, I'll take a general consensus from you, but we are going to be rereading it tonight again to approve it. So it's up to you guys. You want to read it? What do you think?
I'll wait till we reread it later. That's
Reread
fine,
it
as long as
later?
we're going to read it
All
tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea since it's on the right subject.
Right,
Doesn't
all right.
matter when we do it, but this is an appropriate time.
Yeah, well, apparently they want to wait till later, so consensus is we'll wait till later. All right, so if there's no, go ahead,
Just
Greg.
real quick, the actual warrant verbiage right after it says authorize the select board to adopt a betterment plan, the next sentence explains that all of these individual costs are reimbursed, are assessed and reimbursed to the owner of the water lines. So it basically is describing what that betterment plan is, just the things that are
Yes.
associated for that one individual to hook up.
Can you read the whole?
I can. This is, and further authorize the select board to adopt a betterment plan whereby the cost of the improvement to any privately owned service line or infrastructure will be assessed to and reimbursed by the owners of those water lines and infrastructure that are specifically benefited by such improvements, such that the intent is the cost of the program will be paid by the users through betterment and/or user fees.
Thank you.
And I understand the caller's concern, or the questionnaires' concern, because in other towns, betterment can be a scary word.
Right.
And that's where that comes from.
Okay.
It's not the betterment that, the way they use it in other towns. It's a different interpretation.
Okay. The language for the bond is specified by the DRA, and we have to go by the appropriate language. So when the DRA reviews it, if it needs to be changed, it will be, but we don't have a lot of leeway in bond language.
We requested that, Jim. We requested, because it was so legalese, and when we said, can you make this simpler? I said, not by law. We have to write these paragraphs in here to make it legal. So I had the same feeling. It's like,
Yeah.
this is really hard to understand for the average user.
But
So-
we could put a slight one line or something in the explanation to
Well,
clarify.
we have a voter's guide that also does explain it as well.
Clarify it later, because that is a
Yes.
scary word.
Yep. So I am going to end this public hearing at 7:07. If no one else has any issues, I don't hear any phones ringing. And so the next item agenda is we're going to go back to public comment. And I understand there's a whole bunch of people that would like to make comments with regards to recycling. And before I take those comments, I do want to read a letter that was sent to the Select Board today, and we are required to read that. So I'm going to read that right now before we take public comments. It says, "Dear members of the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for what you are doing for our town. The reason for this letter is to share my opinion about the trash recycling issue. I find it hard to believe that only 17% of the town recycles, from what I can see left out picking up during the recycling weeks. I think there is a great need for a way to dispose of our recyclables, and I would not be adverse to dropping it off to a bin somewhere in the town. I do understand that collecting recyclables is not as productive as it once was. If you are not offering recycling, I think that you must allow each household more than one container for trash. We are a senior couple, and we alone generate more than one bin of waste if we must include our recyclables. What do you expect people to do with their additional trash? I also think that you cannot rely on social media to communicate with Plaistow residents. Many do not follow you on those sites. Please send out written information of your plans to keep people in the loop. And I thank you for your time to read this and consider what I have said. And it's signed Joan Tellier, Plaistow resident for 60-plus years. So thank you for your comments, Mrs. Tellier, and we are going to be discussing a lot of this in great detail when we do our agenda item with regards to a trash vendor. So hopefully you stay tuned and you can listen to some of our answers. I'm sure there's two other people here who wish to make a comment about that, so I'm going to bring them up right now at this point.
Jim Peck from Oak Ridge Road, again. First of all, I want to pick up on what that person said. I do want to thank the board for all they do for the town. You don't often hear that at public comment.
We never hear that at public comment.
Never hear it. Now you've heard it.
Thank
It
you, Jim.
broke the chain.
Twice in one meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the curbside recycling. I have a few points to make. I was here 2 months ago, October 20th. I had to look back. It was October 26th. And I talked on this issue, and I spoke in favor of finding a way to continue curbside recycling. I also urge you to have a more open process with input from the public through a public hearing. Since then, there hasn't been a hearing, and the information on the bids and cost frankly have been very difficult to follow and understand. And I know you're very busy, and I'm not trying to be critical, because I know, Francine, for example, you spent a lot of time in this. So I'm not trying to, don't take me the wrong way. But I just want to make a few other comments. I've looked into this in detail. There was a letter, not everybody obviously has saw it, was on Facebook, that Brian Stack wrote to you. Brian couldn't be here tonight, but I wanted to comment on something, your response to him, Francine, just to clarify. You said that 468 out of 3,200 want to continue, that would be 15%. The 468 came from a poll that Brian did on Facebook on Curbside. And I believe there was only 6 that said they didn't want to continue. And I think Brian and myself, we all realize that that's not a complete poll of the town. It's just people on Facebook and those on Facebook that want to do it. So I would just respectfully say, it doesn't say that only 15% would want curbside. I think I'm pretty tuned in to a lot of people in the town, and there's a lot of people in the town, I assure you, it would be much, much more than 468. Out of the 3,200, my sense is it would be at least 1/3 of that, if not more. So you have to take that in consideration. That's one point. The second point is this 17% has been beat to death. The understanding, that's a good example of not having a public hearing and people just take it the wrong way. And it doesn't help when the person in the newspaper doesn't understand it, and they put it in the newspaper and everybody reads it. I think I understand it, because when I was the auditor, I had to look at this. 17% by weight in terms of tonnage. And just for those people out there, and I've confirmed these figures with Jay and some other people, the total tonnage of the town, I believe, is 4,200 tons.
Yep, that's correct.
Just roughly. And of that, 700 tons is recycling.
Correct.
So if you do the math, it's basically 17%.
Correct.
So yes, you drive around and you take pictures, and there's more than that percentage, obviously, putting recycling out. So that's not what it's meant to be. But I think it's a paper tiger, the 17%. And the reason, and I'll explain what I mean. If you go back in time and you look at the trend in this town, 2014, 2015, 2016, 17%, 17%, 17%. We got single stream in 2016, not much of an impact, should have been. And then we ran into the contamination issue. And as you said, it drops it down, which is a real problem. So that needs to be addressed. But I don't think, you make a decision on the budget by the 17%. I think the 17%, we've always had it. So it's not like suddenly we got 17% and we don't want to do recycling. I just don't think you make that determination. That was the second point. The third one is, in your reply to Brian, you said, there's a lot of people in town hurting by taxes. I definitely agree with that. And they don't want to spend an extra, quote, extra $200,000. I looked into what the current contract was, because I had a copy of it from 5 years ago, and I confirmed it with Greg Colby earlier today. The amount that we're paying now in the current contract for recycling is $190,000 a year. That's what we're paying today. So that's kind of the base. So I don't think that we're adding 200,000. We're not going to be at 390. Looking at the bids from last August, and you had bids then, and looking at the actual bid, the recycling part of it ranged from 248,000 to 271,000. Throw out the 271, because I think that's been rejected. I think that's waste management. But let's use 250. So really the increase is from 190 to 250. And I think that's important, because when you make a decision on stopping recycling because it's too expensive, it's $60,000. It's not, I don't believe it's 200,000.
Okay, so I'm just going to interrupt you, because that thought process is a little bit flawed. You did not look at the contract addendums from August that indicated that if the contractor fell below a break-even point for their cost for their recycling, they would charge the town back for that, for the difference. And
Right.
so my fear is with a very low recycling rate, and we're going to get into this when we discuss our vendor contract,
Yeah.
but my fear is that if you're looking at an 11% uncontaminated rate, which is the only thing that we have to go by according to JRM. We have no way to verify this, and we're hoping that these vendors are honest and above board. But if you're looking at an 11% recycling rate, I have absolutely no idea what our monthly chargeback would be for recycling paper, plastic, glass, et cetera. There was no way for us to even budget that. And so that $60,000 difference might translate into $260,000, and I have no way to know that. And that was a concern of this board.
But you can take the contract, and I did look at that clause, and I understand that it's fluid. It's not like a fixed number. You can say, well, that's what it's going to be. I agree. And unfortunately, that's what they're doing. And they have to do it because they want to stay in business. But what you can do is you can look at how much it could increase. There's a mathematical way to do that. I don't think from looking at it would be 200,000 more.
We don't know that.
Well, they say they have a formula right in there on how much they would charge.
But you have to understand that every month, those prices get adjusted to the vendor. And we don't know what those prices are because they do get adjusted monthly, and then they pass that cost down onto us. So it's like looking into a crystal ball, basically. And unless we have a significantly higher rate of recycling, and that's what we're going to talk about in a minute, it's not economically feasible for us to throw a number out there and hope that we hit that number.
I didn't think it public that there would be, you would be debating me. I thought I'd be able to make my statement and just move on.
And you may make a statement, but Jim, I want to make sure that it's an
Point of order.
accurate statement. Excuse me, I'm still talking.
Point of order is a point of order,
I'm
ma'am.
still talking.
That's the point
I
of order.
I have not recognized you. I will when I'm finished talking. The only thing I want to do is make sure that some accurate information is being disseminated in public, because there are a lot of comments that are made that are not exactly accurate or factual. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that.
I would appreciate it if we just finished our
Okay,
comment.
go ahead, go ahead,
Not
go ahead. Go
debate
ahead.
it. If I could, I don't know if Julian has a point of order.
You can finish.
Order is I'd like to hear the person speak that was without being interrupted.
Okay, fine. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, let me finish. And I don't
Okay.
dispel what you're saying, Francine. I just want to make my statement and then,
Okay.
And you have an advantage, and this goes back to, it hasn't been an open process. I've had to dig this out, and if I had to dig it out, people in the town that don't have the ability or
Right.
knowledge that I do, they don't know, they still think 17% is the number. So there's a problem here in information. There should have been a public hearing. So let's go through that. I don't believe it will be an extra 200,000. The other thing is that you have a bid. I think you have two bids tonight. You're going to have to pay tippage for that. You're going to throw it all in the assumption in these bids is the 700 tons of recycling, and now it gets thrown in the trash. That's the assumption, because each of those two companies are using 4,200 tons. So that's going to cost you $60,000, depending on the 84 or 75 you go with per ton. So it's not as though you don't have any recycling costs. So my last point is, if you look at year to year, now this year we budgeted, I think, $741,000. It's going to turn out to be very close to that from what I can see. There was another 64,000 came in December. The total is going to be about 250. So the total amount we're going to spend for recycling and trash this year is 750. Of that, 190 is recycling. So that means the remainder is just waste. So now when you're doing the budget in 2021, you're saying no recycling. So immediately you save 190, but you pay 50. So you're saving $140,000 on recycling. That doesn't show anywhere. What it looks right now with no recycling is though you haven't increased the budget. But in fact, you have, because the cart cost more. The waste is going up as well, from about 570,000 to, depending on the bid that you accept. So what, in fact, you've done is by cutting out recycling, you've made a choice to go no recycling and go with cart. And I would submit that if you ask most of the people in this town, they would prefer to go with recycling and no cart, because the cart costs you more money. You have to get the carts. If you don't do the cart, you don't have to do that. And I understand, so all I'm saying is that you were presented with a dilemma. You didn't want the total to go up, and you had to decide, and you decided on cart. And I'm saying that most people in this town probably wouldn't decide on cart. That's my sense. I think that's all. No, there's another thing. One other point. The track committee in this town recommended, I think last May or earlier, to go with the CARP program with recycling. And the vote was 3-1. And I think you actually voted against it. But there were 3 people.
No.
That recommendation was not followed. It was followed in the sense of CART, but not in the sense of recycling. But I think 3 people wanted to recycle. So what I'm going to recommend is that you reform track. I think going forward, 3,200 people get a service they've gotten for 30 years. You need a track committee. And I'm not volunteering, that's not what I'm saying. But there are 50 people who formed a group because they were upset. It's almost like the layover. There's people that, came out of the woodwork, and they want to do something about, they want to offer their knowledge to the town. Brian Stack, Bob Kincaid, there's a whole bunch of people. And I think if you ask these people, they would be on a committee. So I'm going to recommend, I think you need a track committee going forward, particularly with a change in vendor. You need somebody to be, and to work on the education. Back in the day, Sue Sherman, other people, they worked very hard to get the recycling up. So that's kind of my final. So I favor this citizen, you're going to get a citizen's petition, you've heard that. I favor that petition, just like I did, a citizen's petition 6 years ago on the train layover. This is a quality of life issue, in my opinion. 3,200 people are going to be impacted. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kincaid, did you want to come up too?
Thank you. I'm Bob Kincaid from Old County Road.
Okay.
I'll try to keep this brief. So I'm here to speak in favor of town-wide curbside service similar to what we have now. I understand that the prices are going up, but I feel it's an important public service we've had for a long time that has overwhelming support, and I support the status quo. I have 5 points to make. I'll try to keep them brief. Number 1, you can't win if you don't play. By that, I mean, whatever the percentage by volume is now, Mr. Peck talked about 17%. With curbside recycling, it's almost guaranteed it's going to be less if we make it much more difficult for residents to recycle. So I think there's a general consensus that recycling is important, and I don't think it's a really good precedent for us to be, whatever the percentage now is, to be going in the opposite direction. Number 2, I'm sure you all know, but for the folks at home, the situation in China is impacting what's going on here significantly because that has been the buyer's market historically, and they're, for the most part, not buying up the recyclable, which means, and that's the base contributing factor here. My case and what I've seen in my research is that this will work itself out over time, whether that means China will figure it out and start taking our recyclables, or whether that means domestic innovation will happen and we'll be better able to recycle one way or another. Personally, I think it's short-sighted to abandon our curbside recycling program because it'll be much harder to bring it back once it's gone. Point number 3, professional associations. So I looked up in my research one called the New Hampshire Municipal Association, which advises Board of Selectmen. Their advice was, one myth to dispel is that if recyclables can't be sold for a profit, then they should be thrown away. Rather, recycling should be viewed as a cost avoidance strategy rather than a moneymaker. The Northeast has the highest tipping fees, which is the cost to get rid of the trash or the recycling in the country, in part because we have the least amount of available space for landfills. This high cost will only continue to increase and have an even bigger impact on community budgets, which will make recycling more attractive over time. While it makes some financial sense for some communities with high single-stream recycling costs to landfill or burn, in the short term, this only guarantees a shorter lifespan for landfills and higher tipping fees in the future. So that was what they recommended. Point number 4, again, from that research, 3 communities in New Hampshire have stopped curbside recycling. Of those, and this was about a year ago, this article I read, one of them, after public pushback, came back and ended up bringing curbside recycling back. That's the entire state of New Hampshire. Just 3 communities have done this. So my question would be, do we really want to emulate those communities? And I would contend that we don't. Lastly, like we mentioned, the citizens petition that we're looking to get the sense of the community at the voting box, at the ballot box. And my sense from that was that this is a very bipartisan issue. I've talked to a lot of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents that I'm friends with, and everyone whose signature I got, it's all over the map. So I just feel like this is a people support recycling, people support curbside recycling as a town service. So that's what I came to speak on. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Bob.
Is there anyone else that wishes to either call in or weigh in on this? Because if not, I guess my...
Do we have any other letters?
Do we, I didn't get letters. I had emails, but
Yeah,
no
yeah.
letters. Hold on.
I think there's Marianne
Hello?
Lacasio is on the go-to meeting.
Okay.
Okay, can I have your name and your name, please? Lynn Jeffries. Okay, Lynn, I'm going to put you on the speakerphone if you're okay with that. So if you can state your name and your address, I'm going to do that right now, okay? Okay. All right, hold on. Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
All right, my name is Lynn Jeffries, 12 Ridgewood Road in Plaistow. I have a couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank Jim for talking about the 17% because that's been a very frustrating point. You know, people talking about it's only 17% of the population participates. My trash weighs a ton more than my recycling does. That's just the basis of recycling. You clean it out, you know, it's empty. So I think that's, you know, we need to make sure we clarify. You have an RFD out there for 127 households participating. I don't know where 127 households, you know, how you can possibly get an accurate quote when you're telling them only 127 households will participate in recycling. That to me seems like a waste of an RFD. And my third point is, as Jim said, there are still townspeople who don't know recycling's at risk because for whatever reason, either they aren't available to watch or they haven't caught on social media, but you need to let people know that this is something you're talking about removing because a lot of people count on it. And I'm very distressed that this is happening. And every week I see on our community Facebook page, people saying, what are you talking about? They're taking away recycling? People aren't aware. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
I believe
And-
there's someone on the,
Is there someone on our web, go to webinar? I can't hear. Can you identify yourself with your name and your address, please? I'm not sure. I can't.
Thing to do is ask her to call.
You know what? Could you call 560-8337 and we may be able to hear you a little bit better from the phone, whoever that is? And while we're waiting for that, I guess I just want to make one comment, is that I'm not sure if people have forgotten or chose to ignore the fact that we are not eliminating recycling. We are providing a number of alternate opportunities for people to recycle without a six-figure price tag. And we are going to be going into this a little bit more when we talk about our trash contract, but we have offered a number of multiple opportunities. So I don't want people thinking we're eliminating it altogether and forgetting about it. And I'm also going to reiterate that that 17% is percentage of total trash, not 17% of the people. And I know things get mixed up sometimes when you talk and translate things, but, you know, if people are under misconceptions and misunderstandings, that's how this whole thing unravels. So I'm really hoping that we can provide some basic factual information and correct some of these mistakes that people are under the impression of. So with that being said,
Dean said there's 11 people on the call. And
all right, so I don't know how to, Dean, can you help us out with this and get people onto the call? Come up here. We can't hear anything. It's all garbled.
Can they call on the phone?
I just asked if they could. You know, there's a number that you can call to make sure that you can get heard, but if someone can come up here to the board meeting and kind of help us work through some of this webinar stuff, that would be really helpful, because we can't, it's all garbled and we can't hear you.
Can you give out the number again?
It's 560-8337. It's on your screen if you're watching on channel 17.
I just told Dean to put it in the go-to
In
meeting
the box?
as well.
All right, in the go-to meeting, all right.
Might get some phone
All right.
calls.
All right. So I guess while we're waiting for phone calls, if we can move on to the agenda with regards to trash contracts, we do need to make a decision to choose a vendor. And I believe in your folders you have not only a spreadsheet that Jay did for us, but also a graph that Greg did for us to determine the different costs and prices. So before we get into that, I want to let people know that I did a little bit of research myself, and I spoke with Mr. Cressman, who is our town administrator in Atkinson. And he gave me some really interesting information, because we are a similar census to them. And what he told me was in 2020, the total amount of trash that Atkinson got rid of was 3,168 tons. And out of that, 708 was recycled. That's a 22% recycling rate. In 2019, it was a little bit better. Out of 2,883 tons, 683 was recycled, and that was a 24% rate. Now, what he explained to me, which was really interesting, is one of our vendors, Casella, has a distribution site in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And there is a company in Haverhill called Covanta, and they regularly monitor the recycling in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, we don't have that situation here. But this Covanta monitors the recycling, and they reject recycled materials if it's contaminated. So Mr. Cressman indicated to me that Casella has not had that issue in Atkinson where they are rejecting contaminated materials. So I think that's part of the discussion that we need to have with respect to educating our taxpayers about how to properly recycle. Because they're recycling 24%, and that's a little bit more than twice of what we're doing right now. So, you know, I think if our surrounding towns can learn how to do this properly, we certainly can do so as well. Wait, hold on, there's a phone call coming, hold on. Hello? Yes, Isabel, I know you're calling from Massachusetts, but do you live in Plaistow? I do. You do? Can you give us, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Can you give us your address and then you can make your comment? Yes. Okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Isabel
Isabel Gautreau. I live at 185 Main Street in Plaistow, New Hampshire. And I wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Peck and Mr. Kincaid on their comments. And I also agree that an RFP for 127 households is not realistic and it's not going to entice a lot of companies to bid on it. And I also think that if recycling costs are so unpredictable, then I don't understand how any town can afford to do recycling or to do budgeting. There has to be more to it.
Okay. Do you have any more comments?
No, that's it.
No. Okay, so thank you so much, and I know I have corresponded with you by email, and I will get back to you tomorrow with some other issues. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Are you all set? Okay, good night. All right. So I guess with the respect to the RFP, we might as well discuss this now.
Rachel, I have a question on
yeah.
your comments.
Yeah.
So you talked about Casella when they were in Atkinson. And when did they start seeing their recycling rates go up? When they started using Casella?
I only went back 2 years, and I believe their contract was in 2018 that they started with Casella. So I only have 2019 and 2020 data. And I don't, it actually, their recycling went down in 2020, and Mr. Cressman thought it was probably due to COVID because there's probably more trash being thrown out. And that makes sense to me. That sounds about right. So he only gave me 2 years of data, but I think the thing that I found most impressive was that Casella uses a transfer station in Haverhill that is monitored. So if there's an issue with contamination, they throw the whole thing out, and Casella gets back to the towns and says, hey, guess what? Out of all of this recycling, we're only going to be able to use X amount of, recycling. So we've never had that information before from other vendors. Hold on, another phone call. Hold on. Hello?
Hi, my name is Marianne Lacasio, and I don't know if it's a good time to speak or if it's not.
No, this is perfect, and I did get your email as well, and if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on speakerphone, so if you can just say your name and your address, and you can make your comment. Is that okay? All right, hold on.
Yeah, I'm going to try putting some earbuds in because I'm actually hearing an echo.
Yeah, okay, I know this is not the best way to be doing this, unfortunately, but go ahead.
I know, welcome to COVID, right?
Yeah.
So I want to thank all of you for all the hard work that you do on a regular basis. I do agree with Isabel, who just called, along with Rick and Jim Peck and Mr. Kincaid. I joined a group on Facebook recently when I found out that RFPs were up. I'm not politically savvy, so I've had to do a lot of research, and I have done a lot of research. I talked to all the surrounding towns, Exeter, Raymond, Kingston, Newton, Atkinson, Hampstead, finding out who they used. Transfer stations, one in Kingston, one in Exeter, Newton, they also share. Like, there's so many alternatives. Mm-hmm. I guess for me, what I'd like to say is that I would like to join that track.
Excellent.
I also would like for the board to be open to listen to this group of fantastic people that have put their heads together to try to find an alternative. I love Plaistow. I've been here since 2004. I live at 8 Sunrise Terrace. I drove this morning with a video. Like, all of my neighbors had recycling out except for 3, and of those 3, one of them is an empty home that's being renovated. So I know that people care. I spoke to a Jay Perkins, who's from another town. He's in the highway superintendent. He has done some great strides in working towards recycling. They work with a company called Waste Zero. They've seen their recycling alone go up 30%.
Wow.
They're going to be looking at things such as composting. There's some great alternatives out there. It's really bothersome to me that we're going to be a regressive town. I want to be part of a progressive town. I want to think about our future generations. And so that's why I feel recycling is extremely important. The forward thinkers know that the future holds exciting ways in which other countries are finding ways to recycle materials. We can't just stomp on it because of money, because in the long run, the dollar's not going to save the planet, it's not going to save our environment or our future generations. That's what I wanted to say, so thank you so much for your time.
Okay, those were wonderful comments, and we thank you as well.
Your name again?
Your name is Lacasio. I have her email, so I can send that to her. I just don't have her address.
Marianne Lacasio, and she's at 8 Sunrise Terrace.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you, Jay. All right. So I just want to very quickly comment with regards to the RFP on recycling. The reason 127 households were used was because that RFP went out right after the social media posting of 127 people who would be interested in recycling. Now, obviously, since that time, it has grown exponentially. However, we cannot, as a board, put out requests for proposals that do not say accurate things. We have no idea how many people are going to actually raise their hands and say, yes, I would like to participate in a subscription service and I would be willing to pay X amount of dollars and sign on the dotted line. So this is just an initial salvo and an initial foray to find out how many trash companies may be interested in doing this. And this is one of several things that we are trying to do. So I am going to ask people to please be patient with us while we work through all of this. And if the board feels we need to have a public hearing on this, we'll be happy to do that on the 25th. But, you know, give us a chance to do some of our work as well. So, Jay, you had a comment, and then Julian.
Yeah, regarding the RFP, using a Facebook poll to utilize those numbers was probably not the best practice that should have been done.
Agreed.
And I didn't see the proposal before it actually went out. So I didn't know what was in the proposal that we put out. So I think, you know, we should pull that proposal back and rewrite a new one, depending on how tonight goes, because just that proposal wasn't well-written, and we're using numbers that were inaccurate, because 127 people on Facebook isn't a right sampling of, so we just need to pull that one back and fix it.
Okay, go ahead, Julian.
And I'm with the same comment. For one thing, I agree with the first email you read. We shouldn't base anything based on some Facebook poll. Matter of fact, I've seen Facebook in the past where people were commenting our town and voting that weren't even in our town. And that's a history. And then sometimes the votes is 5 people from the same household. So you don't know where those numbers, those are bogus. But I want to make a motion to withdraw that RFP and take that number out of there, because we don't know how many people there are. There could be way, way more people. I myself discussed it with my wife. We're willing to pay. And we have not been on Facebook about it. I haven't. And I think the RFP should be withdrawn, because who's going to bid on 127 people in the first place? It just shouldn't have a number, because we don't know the number. It's not a good RFP to be out there. We're not going to get any bids.
Go ahead, Greg.
I made a motion, by the way.
Before I ask for a second,
Second.
all right, let's discuss. And Greg, go ahead.
Okay. So I think the really important thing from what I just heard is that we need to determine how many people would be willing to
Exactly.
do a recycle program in Plaistow. And I agree that it should not be a Facebook poll. And no matter what kind of poll we put, if we put it on the web, it's not going to be accurate. So that means that we would have to create the verbiage for a correct survey and send it out to every household with a return address to send back, that we could then have a true number of how many people would be willing to recycle. I thought that we were RFPing for a subscription service, and I didn't know that we had to have a specific number.
Yeah.
The subscription service that we discussed we thought for sure, if a minimum is like 50 or 100, we definitely know that we're going to have that. And so if we can find someone who say, yes, anybody in Plaistow that wants to subscribe, we'll pick up their recyclables. So that's what I thought that was going out. I was a little bit surprised that we had a number in there. It's not kind of like a, you know, it's going to be a lot more. We know it's going to be a lot more than 127 or whatever number that someone comes up with. But if we had some number like that was in the thousands, then it would be much clearer what we need for a subscription service or for curbside recycle. We don't know that right now. So that's, you know, we can withdraw this. Well, actually, the RFP does not have to be acted upon.
That's correct.
So the RFP, we basically asked, they're going to send request in. We don't have to act on that. We can basically say, no, we're not going to accept anything, and then we can do what Julian suggested, was come up with a different RFP based on some facts.
Okay. So I know, Jay, you had a comment, but I guess that was going to be my question to the board, is how would you go about finding out exactly how many people are going to be willing to pay extra for recycling, because we don't have that number. And while people will say, yes, I want to recycle, if we perhaps say, well, that's going to cost you an extra $200 a year, that may change the equation. So I guess that's my question to the board, is how would we go about getting those numbers? And I'm going to just let Jay comment on that.
We don't put a number in there. We just, in the RFP, we ask if a vendor is going to come in for a prescription, subscription service, excuse me, and service the town. And we can't put a number in there because we don't know. And we have to survey the whole town to get that number. And at this point in time, it's kind of, it's not late in the game, but to have a Facebook post or a mailed out survey or a Survey Monkey on the town website kind of thing, we could potentially do that, but you've dealt with surveys in the past, and
Right.
Mark has dealt with surveys in the past, and it's hard to get everyone to participate. So I think the RFP, and I'm speaking for it, but I'm for curbside recycling all the way. So you guys already know where I stand on it.
Right.
But if we're going to do this RFP, you can't put numbers in there like that. It just has to be to provide a subscription recycling service to the town of Plaistow with the numbers to be determined, or something, some wording to that effect, but that's just my thought on it.
So your thought is that if we put no numbers in there, we would be more able to get a response for subscription services as opposed to a number?
You could put up to 3,200 residents, right? Because there's a potential of up to 3,200 residents or households that would potentially recycle. That's a number
Supposing
you
it
could
turns
work.
out to be 1,000, I guess that was my dilemma, is I don't want to give out information to a vendor that's misleading, any more than I want
not
them to
mis-
give us
not
misleading
misleading.
That's not
information.
misleading, though. We have 3,200 households that would
Well, you just
potentially
stated-
be
State
recycling.
it that, but you got to state it that way. That the
Right.
population of the town is 32 households, 3,200 households.
Right.
And basically, you know,
It's either no number or you reference the 3,200 residents.
All right, so is it the will of this board that we do have a motion and a second on the floor to pull the RFP and to reword the RFP? Is that what you're asking for as a motion, Julian?
Yes, just take the number out. The thing is, we don't need a poll. Any reputable company knows how many residents are in our town, and if they have a different price depending on how many, they will say up to this many, there'll be this price, up to this many, it might be this price. These companies are not idiots. If they're really a professional company, they know how the game works. They know how many residential properties are in the town. They know that up to this amount, we can afford to do it for this. Up to this amount, we know we have afforded to this. Let them make the proposal. They're in business. If they can't do that, they probably wouldn't be in business. I mean, so we don't need to put a number in there. We don't need to mislead them. If you want to say we have this many households, yeah, you could put that in our town, but we can't anticipate who would or who wouldn't. They're going to determine what the price scale will be. So we just don't need to put the number in. That's
All
what
right,
Jay's
so,
saying.
so the way I'm hearing the motion is you want to rescind the RFP. Now, do you want to rewrite the RFP? Does someone want to do that?
I would like to see the town manager or one of his personal people who know how to write an RFP. This is their job, this is their profession, they're professionals. They know how to do it right. I would rather see that done cleanly and done, because that's
Okay.
not our business.
All right,
We're just
so-
a governing body.
All right, so.
We need to make sure that a person that knows how to do it, that has the experience. And I have 100% confidence in either Mr. Greg Colby or Mr. Pearson, that they can come up with an RFP that will be both legal and be advantageous to our town.
Okay. Go ahead, Greg.
So that might be the case, Jillian, that we could rely on their expertise in terms of writing, but I think it is the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen to decide what is in that
Yes,
RFP.
would you mind if
What
I
we
put you
want
on speakerphone?
specifically
And if you could give us
is
your
it to
name and
ask
your
for.
address.
I
Everybody
agree
will
with
be
you.
able to hear your
And
comments.
so that
Okay,
work
hold
has
on
to
a
be
second,
done
I'll let you
first.
know.
Now,
Hold
once
on.
we have that and we all agree with it, then we could say, all right, can you help us polish this up?
I think the town manager knows what we want, and the
I don't
thing is,
think he
we
does.
should be able to see it before it is sent out
I don't think he does. I think we're still discussing this. I think we as a board are still discussing this. And we have various opinions about what this thing should be.
Well, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, because he's a very intelligent man.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I do have another speaker who wishes to weigh in on the recycling. So we're going to hold off on voting on this motion until we hear from this lady.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you give us your name and address, and then you can speak? Thank you.
Sure. This is Sanaz Anthony from 4 Village Way. So I just wanted to reach out and say that, in this day and age, it is not a good idea to go backwards and stop recycling. Instead, if we're having issues with not enough participation or people mixing up their trash with their recycling, things like that, we need to educate our community. We need to reach out by providing them with specific information about what should be recycled and how to sort things out so that they're not throwing trash in there that shouldn't be put in there. And that starts with the town providing that education. Now, I was thinking, what's the best way to reach people so that they get to see what is supposed to be recycled and what isn't. Everyone in Plaistow seems to be on Facebook. So through some educational videos that we can get the high school students to help create with us.
That's a good idea.
I'm willing to step up and help with that. I have, a technology background, video production background. I'll be willing to help set something up where we are educating the town of Plaistow about recycling in general and what should and should not be inside these recycling bins. And I think the high school kids are whizzes at creating videos. We can get them involved in the community within their households, and just spread the word of the importance of recycling and what should be done to increase participation and get more of these households involved.
Okay, thank you. Those are excellent comments, and we appreciate them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so we need to move on. We're way behind our agenda right now. So let's talk about this motion. Do you want to vote on pulling this RFP?
Is the public hearing still open?
No. I'm going to close, public comment, I'm going to
I
close.
have another comment for public hearing.
Public comment is
I didn't
closed.
hear you close the public hearing.
It's not a hearing, it's a public comment. We're on public comment?
You closed public comment, I didn't hear you.
Okay, I will allow you one more comment, and then we need to move on. All right, I will close it after Mr. Peck speaks.
I realize you're in a hurry. This is an important topic, and I just want to be clear. The people that I have talked to, the 50 people that are heavily involved in this, they don't want subscription. They don't want a dumpster to put 26 tons every 2 weeks. They want curbside. So whether you like it or not, they don't want, they didn't ask for cart. You didn't hear a lot of people calling tonight and say, I want cart. Don't not get cart. People called because they want curbside recycling. And so what we're asking is tonight you have 2 RFPs. You should not
Yes, we
approve
are
those
actually
tonight.
closing in about 2 minutes.
not listening.
You're the last person to comment, so I'm going to put you.
We're listening, Jim, go ahead.
And if you could give us your name and your address, we'll be happy to let you speak. Is that all right with you? Oh, okay, so hold on. All right, are you?
Okay, so what I want to make sure is, I'm asking, and I think a lot of people are asking, do not approve one of those RFP tonight's. You should have an RFP that includes curbside recycling. That's what people are asking. They don't want you to approve one of these RFPs tonight, because that would be a mistake.
Okay, thank you. All right, ma'am, could you kindly give us your name and your address, please?
Erin Robinson at 14 Dundee Drive, and I want to omit submission.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's it.
Go ahead.
That's all I had.
Oh, all right. Oh, all right, thank you so much. All righty, you have a good night, thank you. All right, so let's get back to our motion and our second that you want to remove the RFP, is that correct? So if there's no further discussion, I'm going to take a
It
vote.
doesn't matter if we pull it or not, we can't pull it because it's already out there.
Right.
Yeah, you
Right.
can.
Well, we can pull it off the website or whatever,
Yeah,
but
the thing is, it's misleading. When you say 127, it's ridiculous. Nobody's going to bid on it, which means basically, it's like you never went out there.
Right, it's out there right now.
It's a hindrance being
It's out there right now. We don't know whether or not we have received anything from it.
It's not due until February 22nd,
Right.
so.
So if there's
so-
no responses to it, then it's a moot point.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to pull the RFP, and there was a second on it. So you may vote yes or no. If you think it's a moot point, then vote no, and if you think you'd want to pull it, vote yes. So I'm going to take a vote on that now. Anyone that wants to pull the RFP, say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. No? Okay, so we will pull the RFP. What did you vote, Jay? I
I
didn't.
voted aye.
Aye, okay, so it's a 3-1 vote, so we will pull the RFP. All right. So moving forward with that, we still need to discuss approving a trash vendor. So if we could all take a look at the prices that were quoted on our Casella and our waste management contracts, and I believe you guys have a spreadsheet in your folder. Does anybody want to open up, I will open up the floor for a basic discussion on what your thoughts are for the trash. Go ahead, Greg.
So if we were to approve one of these 2 vendors, it does not preclude us from going back to the vendor and saying, yes, we also want to do
Exactly.
curbside recycle. So
Exactly.
we could make a decision on this waste management, and we have something in place, and now we could augment that at a later point. And I think we need to have further discussion, and we need to get further comment from the town about what they really want. We were trying to save the town some money.
Yeah.
And another point I want to make is the numbers just to remove trash have gone up from the previous contract. I don't know if we said that, but it's more expensive just to throw away trash as well. Not only just the increase in cost for recycle. I think we have had a lot of great comments come from the public. And I think there is an interest, and hopefully we could find somebody who could drive this, a committee to make recommendations. I think we still have to make these decisions ourselves for the time that we have. Our contract expires on June 1st, I believe.
July 1st.
July 1st. So we can't futz around. We have to do something here. If there's any way that we can get further information from the public, and I think the only way that we can do that is a quick mailer. Send a mailer out and get the results back, and then we have an understanding. Yes, we want to pay for our curbside recycling, or no, we would willing to do a subscription service, or whatever the simple decisions. It should be a very simple survey, and it should be very, very distinct and easy to understand. And I think it'd be worth the postage and the mailing to get this thing done in a quick turnaround, so we can then make a decision on what we're going to do with recycle. That's my comments.
Okay, go ahead, Julian.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what Greg said, and I know it's sincere. But one thing I don't feel comfortable about a decision this important without our fifth selectman here. Not knowing how the vote's going to go, I think the fifth selectman should be here for this vote.
For which vote? To approve
the
the
vote to
contract?
approve this
All
or
right, well,
not.
actually, I did speak with Mr. Blinn before he left for his vacation, and I reviewed a number of these issues that we were going to be voting on, and his personal preference was to vote for Casella. So he did tell me that, and he also indicated some personal preferences for warrant articles, et cetera, which we will discuss later. So if you are comfortable
But
with
he
that.
cannot vote.
Pardon?
But he cannot vote by conversation.
No, he can't vote by conversation, but I know his intent. And we, as Greg said, we can't futz around. We started deliberating this in August of last year, and we have gone through analysis paralysis with all of these combinations, permutations, and it's now time for us to make a decision so that we can move forward with the trash portion of it. That does not preclude any type of recycling. We can look at that at a separate date and time when we have 5 board members here, and we still have 6 months in which to get an RFP and to discuss all of these costs. So I would like to have someone put a motion on the floor to approve either one of these vendors.
Make a motion that we approve the Casella bid as it is a 9% difference, 9% lower, and that it has a good reputation with the surrounding towns, and it would not preclude us. I think also the Casella was the only, of the 2 bids, was the only one that complied to the letter of the RFP. Waste Management did not do that. They did not provide a bid without cart. So I'll make a motion that we approve Casella as the Waste Management hauler for the town.
All right, so may I have a second on that motion, please? I will second it to move the motion. So further discussion, Jay.
So as you guys know, I'm fully in favor of curbside. My preference for our hauler would be to go with Casella. I do like a lot of their options, some of how they're handling recycling within the country. The willing to work with us on the dumpster and the transfer station. So my preference is to go with them, but I'm going to vote not to approve this because it doesn't include a curbside recycling option. I know we will discuss this further, but I'm sure, going forward with, if this motion passes, we'll investigate those options, but I'm going to vote no on selecting them, and that's my reason for it.
Okay, all right. You have a preference,
I
Julian?
agree with Jay. I like Casella better than the others, looking at the numbers and their proposals. But for the same reasons, we have to have the recycling options because we have to make that decision, and you can't make that decision without knowing what numbers are. And even though I favor Casella, I'm going to have to do the same.
Okay. So if we vote on this, this motion is going to fail because it appears to be a 2-2 vote, which means we are going to push off a decision for our trash contract. Part of the reason that I would vote for Casella is because we've already gone up to a certain point in our negotiations with them on the last time. And I was hoping that we could use that as a jumping off point to continue negotiations. They have lowered their base rate a little bit for us. They've also included more people, I believe 50 more people in their base rate from where they would be recycling from 3,150 to 3,200. And what else? They did one other thing, and I think they adjusted a fuel rate for us too that was a little bit more favorable. So basically, is what this board is saying is you want to postpone this until you can get a recycling component, because part of the addendum that I would go and look at is to have the ability to renegotiate this contract with a recycling component, because I know that's what you had all asked for. So I guess my feeling is that if we have that as an addendum for the contract, it doesn't make sense for us to postpone this further on down the line, because the closer you get to July, the less flexibility you are going to have and the less momentum and advantage you are going to have. So I think you need to really seriously reconsider approving them as the approved vendor and moving forward with a contract negotiation with that caveat to it. And at least you have something in motion, because I'm really concerned that you guys are not going to be making decisions till after the March town vote, and you're looking at April, May, June, you're looking at a 3-month time span to pull all this together, and I am concerned that you will not have time to do that. So I just want to, open up my thoughts to that as well. One of the things that I was going to get a board consensus of was some of the things that you had discussed during the last contract. So one of the things, several things that we discussed is the consensus of getting a 10-yard recycling dumpster that's lockable so that we would be able to contain the recycling. The other one was access to the Raymond transfer station. And I believe I put in your packages, I went down to the transfer station and got you a list of what the charges would be for bulk drop-offs for Raymond. They were very reasonable prices. I was surprised. And I also believe that you guys had discussed quarterly bulk pickups at the residence that we would be paying for too on a quarterly basis. And then the last one was a request to renegotiate the contract if and when you decided that recycling and what you needed for recycling was going to be favorable to you. So.
Well, that's already in the contract already.
Well, it's a request to do so. And those 4 things were what we all as a board had discussed back in August that we had agreed to do. And so if you guys are still in agreement with all of those terms, I don't see why we should not be able to submit this RFP to town council for review and move forward from those agreements and move forward to a contract that we can at least sign and say, okay, we're all set on July 1st for trash. And then after that's all set, then you as a board, we as a board can start looking at a public hearing on January 25th. We can start looking at, okay, let's take a look at what do we want. We can have our town manager generate an RFP for curbside recycling, and we can move forward for that to piggyback onto Casella. You may find that Casella may not be the best person to do that. They may not be the most cost effective, and we will not know that, but we got to take first things first. So I am,
So
go ahead.
The last question I have is, do you, to Jay and to Julian, do you guys feel like if we approve this contract, it somehow puts in question whether or not we're going to be doing recycling? Can I ask that?
Can you comment on that? Yeah.
Okay.
So I hear you with this. I really do. And it does concern me that, yes, we're getting down to the wire here and we need to move forward. And we've gone through this over and over and over. And, if I'm, this isn't holding us to not having curbside recycling.
Correct.
It does not.
That's correct.
But this doesn't include that. So how difficult is it going to be for them to renegotiate this if it's a consensus of the board to move forward with a curbside recycling option? Are they going to be able to just change these numbers, or are we going to have to go back out to bid again?
So it will involve another cart, probably a 64-gallon cart. Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. It could be another 96. It would be another cart that we have to purchase, and it could be a separate line item for just the recycle. So if the board wants to do recycling, then I'm going to support that decision.
Right.
And so I just don't want to hold off until the last minute and then find out that Casella says, well, you guys can't make up your mind. We're not negotiating you anymore. If we now have a contract to get rid of waste, we now can go back to them and say, please give us a bid on what recycle would cost. And then we can go forward. So the same question that I asked Jay, could I ask Julian with that question? Do you feel that we would also be able to do recycle if we make Casella our waste management remover? Go ahead.
I have a red flag, like Jay does, that we may end up, we move forward, we go ahead, we drop it behind us, and we move forward, and we don't discuss what's important. I don't think 1 week is a big deal, and I don't think Mr. Blind, even though you may have, I was supporting this 100% to start with as well, and I know that Mr. Blind was as well, because I've talked to him as the same. But since then, there's been more discussion and more information put out.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what Mr. Blind has to say too. He's 20% of our board. This is an extremely important decision for our town. And I don't think to wait 1 week for Mr. Blind to participate, and hopefully we have another meeting next week. Even if we don't, I have no problem. I'll come in every single week. None of us, we all live in town with the COVID thing, except for Mr. Blind. Nobody's traveling on vacation, and I'm sure he's not going to be on vacation forever. And I think this time delay gives us time to think, and we can still talk to Casella right away. Give us some numbers for the recycling part so we can see something. It's hard to make decisions without information, and we don't have that information. Like you said, what about, do we need more carts? What will it cost us for carts? To add recycling, I think we've pretty much determined we're going with Casella. I think that's unanimous, pretty
If Jay
much.
was here, if John was here.
I think he would say the same thing,
Right.
even though I can't vote for him.
You don't need to vote for him.
But there's more
You need to vote-
information put on the
you need to
table
vote for
than he
Julian.
had before he left.
Right, but you need to vote for Julian.
I
You
need to
don't
vote for me.
Right, right.
So I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to assume what he's going to vote, because I don't know. He can change his mind just like I can change my mind.
Yep.
I mean, before the meeting, I was leaning toward to vote for it. But I also was very thinking about it before I came here. Why isn't the 5th Selectman here? And I understand people got to take vacation. That's not a fault of Mr. Blind. But this is an important vote. A week difference isn't going to make any difference. It's only 1 week.
Okay,
The
so,
contract is not till June. Whether this board finishes the job or the upcoming board finishes the job, it's going to get done before June.
We can't.
But we've already, Casella can know we have intention to go with them. We just need some more numbers.
all right, are you finished so I can
I'm
let
finished.
other people speak? Okay, so Greg and then Jay.
My last comment, we cannot, if one person is on vacation, we do expect the rest of the board to go on and move on their business. It is our responsibility to pick a trash remover, and we should do that. As selectmen, we should do that. We should not sit there and say, oh, one person's unavailable, so we're not going to vote.
That was
That
just my
doesn't,
second
that doesn't
point.
make, to me, that doesn't make,
again.
excuse me. That
Do not
doesn't make,
interrupt.
again.
It
Please
doesn't
do not
make-
interrupt the speaker.
it
You're out
doesn't
of
make
order.
sense that we're like, oh, that's not my excuse, I'm not going to vote because one person's missing. Sometimes that happens, that's going to happen. People are going to get sick. John got COVID. We dealt with it the best that we can. He's on vacation right now. We have to pay him that respect. I'm glad that Francine talked to him, and if we had made this vote, he probably would have voted for it. But we sit there, we don't, just because we are 4 people, we shouldn't be frozen to make a decision. It just doesn't make any sense. Let's pick the vendor that we want and then go forward with the recycle and put that on it. It's a simple thing. It's like, here's one piece of it. Now, the next piece is the recycle. What do we have to do for the recycle? We have to get another cart. Okay, we know how to do that. And we can go to Casella and say, all right, what's your cost? And we could add that. This we know. This we know. We've gone through this for months and months and months. I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in that we can't make this simple decision.
Jay, go ahead.
So Greg brought up the carts. So the last meeting, we voted for 01 to go with some carts, 3,200 carts or 3,100 carts, whatever the number was.
3150.
So is that something that's set in stone now, or is that something we can add on to if things change and we decide to go with some type of curbside program? Is it going to be easy for us to piggyback onto that contract to say, well, we need 3,200 more, or whatever that number is?
So I guess my comment to you is that we need to take this in a linear and sequential manner. We can't discuss all of these other combinations and permutations unless we get the trash contract out of the way first, and then you all can decide with the public hearing, with people's input, et cetera, et cetera. We also have to put out an RFP. I am sure that this cart company would be very happy to add carts on. However, you have to understand two things. We have a budget that we need to lock into stone on the 25th to present to the taxpayers, so we don't know anything about that yet, and we probably will not know about that until afterwards. And so to rush this and not have a thoughtful process is just going to make it messy for everybody. In the effort to try to get recycling in right before March vote may not be the best of situations. You all may need to discuss this with your new board during the course of the year to get it right. Now, they have locked in their pricing for until December 31st, and we have already signed that contract for 3150 96-gallon containers, and the only thing they're waiting for you guys to do is choose a color. So you may find that while the contract is at this amount for the 96 gallons, you may find a totally different price, but I'm sure they will accommodate you on that, but you don't know that yet. So I guess what I'm saying to you guys is you're trying to shove all this stuff in with all these questions and comments before we even get a sense of what the public is able and willing to pay for. So I would really strongly urge you to consider what Greg says about, we already know these numbers here for trash. Let's take care of this first, and then we can discuss, okay, what do you guys want to see for recycling? So Greg first, and then Jay.
So to answer Jay's question, yes, we can do this. Absolutely, we can do this. Okay?
Yeah.
I think you did like danced around down this.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we can do this. So if we decide that we're going to do curbside pickup, yes, we can get carts to do that. That's not a problem. We can do that. And we can go to Casella, and if Casella doesn't want to do it, we can go to another vendor and determine what we want to do with recyclables. I think we need to do is pick our waste management remover first, and then immediately, if we want to do another meeting, the next meeting should be how are we going to do recycle? How are we going to find out from what we've already heard from the citizens in the town, which way do we need to go? And we're going to have to make a decision on that. Once we make a decision, then we write an RFP for, well, first of all, we don't have to write an RFP. We can go directly to Casella and say, how much is it going to cost to do this type of recycling? It's doable. It's very, very doable. And I don't think we need to wait until March. We don't need to wait until deliberative. We can get this thing done in the month of January. Absolutely. I have no question whatsoever. If we're willing to spend some money and do a survey and send it out to everybody, we can get really good data back for the feeling of the town. I think we have a sense of that already, but if you want to get some specific numbers, we can get some specific numbers. And if this is an increase in cost, one thing we have to be aware, we have a pending budget right now. And so we're going to have to increase that budget to the budget committee,
Yes.
and hopefully you'll carry that message to them. If this is what our citizens want, this is what we are going to have to do if we want to do recycling. But absolutely we can do this. I have no question in my mind.
Well, I'm glad that people came out and spoke up, because until we say we're going to get rid of recycle, where were these people? We tried many years before to get a program going together to increase recycling, and there was nothing but crickets. And people tried really hard to do things, and nobody would listen. Matter of fact, we've even been talked about during Board of Selectmen meetings. How come we can't put an ordinance that says condominiums and apartments have to allow recycling as well, because I know a lot of units, they don't, I just talked to one lady today, she's in the condominiums, they have 28 units, they put 4 barrels out there, they get filled up right away, and then the rest goes in the trash. And that's a problem, but we could have put an ordinance long ago that says you have to recycle, but we didn't. I don't know why, it just, every time it gets brought up, it gets.
I think we're kind of getting
No,
off
let me finish,
topic right
then
now.
again.
Please finish, and we're getting off topic, so I am
The
going to
thing
call
about
for a vote.
My decision based upon, just because Mr. Blinn is here is not the issue. It's just another point. It's always been tradition with this board, if it was an important decision, and I know you've only been on the board 2 years, that before, and I learned from my predecessors, that when it was something really important, we always waited for unless it was something critical that had to be done today, which of course, yes, you go ahead and vote. But usually by tradition, something that's very important, you wait, unless it's critical that it has to be done today. It's the same thing in the military. There's some decisions you have to make, snap decision regardless, and you do it, and then sometimes you don't.
All right,
I don't think
gentlemen.
waiting a week is a big deal.
Gentlemen, I am going to end this
Why is it I
discussion.
Mr. Chairman, why is it I always get cut off? You never cut off Mr. Talon or anybody else. You always cut me off. Why
It cuts
is
me
that?
off all the time. What are you talking about?
Pretty consistent.
Gentlemen, we are going to take a vote on your motion to approve a trash vendor. Our next meeting, I believe, is scheduled for January 25th. So if this vote does not pass, we can review it then. But if it doesn't pass, the next meeting is in February. So I'm going to ask for a vote to approve Casella as a vendor. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so the motion fails, and it will be postponed till January 25th.
Okay.
Okay. So, next item is to approve encumbrances. And I believe we have a new set of encumbrances that were submitted from what was reviewed on December 14th. And there has been a lot of discussion and a lot of comments with regards to encumbrances. Some of those discussions were not exactly accurate, so I'd like to kind of set the record straight and read to you a couple of RSA statutes from the municipal budget law, which is Chapter 32. This one is 3222, and it says review of expenditures. Upon request by the Budget Committee, the governing body of the town or the district or the town manager or other administrative official shall forthwith submit to the Budget Committee a comparative statement of all appropriations and all expenditures by them made in such detail as the Budget Committee may require. The provisions of this section shall not be construed to mean that the Budget Committee or any member of the Budget Committee shall have any authority to dispute or challenge the discretion of other officials over current town or district expenditures. And the appropriations part of the municipal budget law, and this is section 32.7, states annual meeting appropriations shall cover anticipated expenditures for one fiscal year. All appropriations shall lapse at the end of the fiscal year, and any unexpended portion thereof shall not be expended without further appropriation unless that amount has, prior to the end of that fiscal year, become encumbered by a legally enforceable obligation created by contract or otherwise to any person for that expenditure of that amount. Nowhere in this appropriation does it say that the Board of Selectmen must vote on this by the end of the year. It merely states that a dollar amount needs to be attached to a legally enforceable obligation. And so if you recall, we did receive these encumbrances on December 14th, and the Budget Committee and the auditors received that copy of these encumbrances on December 15th. So we have more than satisfied the letter of the law for that. So tonight we're here to review some of the encumbrances, and I don't know if you guys want to take them individually and vote on them, Is that the consensus of the board that you want to do it individually? And so hopefully, Greg, if there's any questions, you can kind of jump in on that.
Let me get this clear. We don't have to vote on these.
No.
We basically have to say, yes, we think they are proper.
That's correct. Only the dollar value must be attached to the legal obligation. If you look at these encumbrances, we have all of that as of December 31st.
So I assume you have Mr. Bracci's list of what he thought was, what he perceived was findings for these?
I don't have that.
Okay.
Well, it was
He
in our
sent
email.
out, we as elected town auditors have audited the 2020 encumbrance and supporting documents as given to us by the town financial officer. The documents referred to are attached. And then this is fine encumbrance 1 is acceptable, it's an enforceable contract. Encumbrance number 2, which is the excavation drainage, is not accepted. Reason, documentation is an estimate, no signatures, no contract. The price is subject to change. Unenforceable documentation. Additionally, the encumbrance figure of da-da-da does not equal the document total. So he goes through with all of these encumbrances, basically saying why he thinks they are acceptable or not acceptable. So all I want to know is, from what I have read through all of this, are these all reasonable, enforceable agreements? They don't have to be enforceable contracts, but they have to be enforceable agreements
Okay.
that we have numbers for these.
So can I ask you who was sent that information from the auditors?
He
Was
sent it to you.
I didn't get it.
At Plaistow, to me, to John,
Okay, all
to
right.
Jay rather, to Julian.
Okay, so he sent it to the board. Okay, that's good.
And he also copied the budget committee. You wanna
we
see
got it,
this
I read it.
copy?
Okay. Well, it may be in my email somewhere. Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to section 3222. The provisions of this section shall not be construed to mean that any member of the budget committee shall have any authority to dispute or challenge the discretion of other officials over current town or district expenditures. So while they both may have review authority, they do not have the authority to question the final decisions of the board.
Okay.
So I am going to also point out to you that when we received these 2 weeks early, we did not have all the documentation that we needed to have. So the conclusions that the auditors were under did not have all the information that we have tonight. And that was the whole issue of doing this early.
Yep.
We really didn't have all the information, and I think the board indicated that. So while the auditors' opinions are much valued and appreciated, they did not have all the information. So we will make that determination here tonight. So Cochran and Associates, we have a full statistical evaluation and a contract which is signed by town management and our assessors. So am I going to get a consensus from the board that that is a legally encumbered agreement? Yes? Okay. So the next one, the next two actually,
I don't want to speak for everybody. Do you
well,
agree?
there's...
I shook my head in agreement, yes.
Yes, you're shaking head in consensus.
I will voice my consensus next time.
Okay.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to talk for you.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, if you shake your head, I'll look around and say that's a consensus. Okay, guys, all right. Okay, so the next two items are from Select Excavation and Landscaping. And actually, the auditors had the same question that I had for Mr. Colby because the estimates didn't match the totals. So what he explained to me is that there were two different contracts. There are signed purchase orders dated December 31st. In one of the purchase orders, there is what they call, if you look at the second one, the estimate 1534. The first item, it says mobilization, and there's a quantity of 4 at a rate. Mobilization, Greg explained to me, was the ability for them to actually put equipment at the site and then a secondary mobilization to remove the equipment. And instead of dividing that up into both different estimates, he put it on one estimate instead of dividing it in half. So that's where the discrepancy came as far as what the numbers said and what they didn't match. So we do have a signed purchase order, we do have an estimate, and so I guess my thought is that both of those drainage projects, excuse me, from Select Excavation are acceptable. Is that acceptable to the rest of the board? Julian says yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that one, those two are good too. All right, next one is Continental Paving. And I did also speak with Greg Colby again regarding this, and this is kind of a remnant from, I guess, our highway block grants. And Greg Talon and I had an opportunity to speak with Dan Garlington this past Thursday to talk to him about these encumbrances, because it kind of rolls year after year after year. And we had talked to Dan and asked him if it would be possible for him to arrange paving through the block grants in the spring and in the summer so that it would be completed and he wouldn't have to worry about cold weather or people not being able to rip the paving up. And so I'm hoping that this year going forward, he will be able to arrange for paving in the spring and summer so that we don't have to keep encumbering these funds. They will be used up within the calendar year. So because it's kind of a block grant, there really isn't a contract for it, but Continental Paving, as you can see from this letter, is going to honor the 2020 prices in 2021. So it is my personal opinion that this is a legally enforceable and binding agreement that has been done with Continental every year. And go ahead, Julian, you can make a comment on
I
that.
agree with it's valid. I also make a point to someone to suggest that this wouldn't be encumbered. This would not go back in the general fund. We'd probably have to return it to the state.
Good point. Good
I
point.
mean, the town would lose this money.
I think hopefully we've solved the problem for this year by asking Dan to do his paving a little bit early, but is the board in agreement with consensus that this is an appropriate encumbrance?
Do we have to agree to this, or do we have to vote to accept this? Because I don't see anything on Dan's side saying, yes, I agree with this, or...
No, we
actually
don't,
have
but
Dan.
it is made to his attention. And so I just want to get a consensus if you feel that this is an appropriate encumbrance. Because if you don't,
We also
Julian's...
have a signed purchase order.
Okay, I didn't
That's-
see that
So
one.
that's the key thing that's
Yeah.
missing with this, because I think this is just a quote. It's a quote. It's-
Yeah, we didn't get the purchase order, Greg. I mean, we didn't get the signed. It is in there, it's, all right.
It isn't here?
Is it? Okay.
Oh, is it separate? Jeff, is it separate?
I know you gave us so much stuff here.
There is a separate signed purchase order for that.
Okay. I have systems engineering.
And it would have been the page just before the letter.
Yep.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
it is right before the letter.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, Continental Paving, I apologize, all right.
Okay.
All right, well then I guess that takes care of that. Thank you, Greg, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Well,
so-
you're welcome, no problem.
So are you in agreement that that is an acceptable encumbrance then? Yes, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. Next one is, these are two purchase orders, I believe, for the police department. And these are also signed purchase orders from the police department with an estimate from the Whitmer Public Safety Group for a quote. And there's two separate ones, and they look like they were approved by the same department head in the police department.
The only question I have is on the AAA policy police supply. It
Which,
says, it's,
okay. It's not the office, okay, yep, go ahead, I got it.
it
Yep.
says this quote is valid until 12/31/2020.
Right. If we have already signed off on the purchase order to purchase it, and I believe the purchase order is dated 12/7,
Oh, okay.
I think we're good.
I didn't see that. Oh, there's two.
Is that right, Greg?
My bad. I got it.
Is that okay?
I have-
Yes? Yeah, all
I have a
right.
comment on that one. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
So that particular one, the items are on back order, and that's the only reason why that's outstanding is because they could not fulfill the order because the items were on back order.
Okay. So are you all comfortable with that's an acceptable encumbrance?
Otherwise, the sale would have been completed before the 31st.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so consensus for approval on that? Yes? Yes, Jay, are you good with that too?
I
All
said
right.
yes, yep.
Okay. All right, so the last set is systems engineering. And there are specific expenditures based on their original contract. And so you have the contract, you have the proposal, you have Greg Colby's signature on the quote dated 11/13. And where else? There's 3 different sets here. Wow, you did a lot of work for us, Greg. Thank you so much. So each one of these have proposals and
Signed contract.
statements of work and signatures from both the vendor and our town officials.
Yep.
So,
And may I add that under these 3 agreements, the amounts that are listed here differ from the contracts because all 3 of those are currently ongoing projects, which for one reason or another, whether it be COVID, whether it be, equipment delays and the like that prevented them from being completed by December 31st. But all of them are in some stage of process. So
Okay.
that's why they will differ from the amounts.
okay, so it is a living, breathing contract that is in flux based on what you're paying them out. All right.
That is
so-
correct.
Okay, so are we in consensus and agreement that those are acceptable as well, Julian? Yes, okay. All right, so the last 2 we have down here is Sanborn Head for the landfill cap maintenance. And I think if you recall, we had passed this warrant article last year for, what was it, $150,000? And this, I'm guessing, is the balance of that contract that is going to be carried over. And it's too much paper here.
And that is correct. That is
Is
the
that right?
signed
Okay.
document under that warrant article. This is the remaining amount to finish up the project, which again, it sounds like a broken record, but they weren't able to complete everything,
Right.
primarily due to COVID.
All right, but we do have a warrant article that was passed, and this is just basically the remainder that's carried over. So if you guys are in consensus with that, we can check that off. Are you all in consensus that that is a valid encumbrance? Yes? Yes, okay. And then our last one is Revision Energy for solar panels. And originally, we had thought to encumber that. And Greg, this is a kind of a question for you because I think warrant article P2004 indicates that this is a non-lapsing appropriation. So is it my understanding that we do not need to appropriate this money because it's non-lapsing? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Technically, that is correct. I
All right.
apologize for the confusion. I had started a listing of all of the outstanding contracts that I knew of, and that was one of them. So I didn't mean to confuse the situation and, with the non-lapsing, votes. And there was an unfortunate, error or situation on my part. So I do apologize for the confusion.
If that's the only mistake you made all last year, then I think you're good to go.
So this revision energy is.
So
take it
the
off.
Revision Energy, we can take that off,
It's
right?
not an encumbrance.
Go ahead,
I
Julie.
don't think it's a mistake. His first sheet says, these are just outstanding contracts. It's not under the encumbrance anyway. He
Right.
didn't say it's encumbrance.
Right,
We-
okay.
Just for transparency.
Right.
Okay, so if everyone is in agreement that that does not need to be encumbered, I think that we are good to go on the year-end encumbrances, and you can move forward with whatever you need to do, Greg. And thank you for providing all this extra documentation. We greatly appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Greg. That was
You are more than welcome.
Huge
very,
amount
very
of work.
helpful. And,
Very thorough.
I
yeah,
know.
and thank you, Francine, for walking through each one. That was,
You're welcome.
that's helpful.
You are welcome. It's part of my job, I think.
Could I follow up with something that's in
Sure.
your package?
Sure.
You should have a piece of paper that says BOS meeting 1/11/21. It says correction to be noted. And this just corrects, this motion, if you decide to make it tonight, would just correct the minutes from December 14, 2020 about that particular encumbrance, that it is a non-lapsing warrant article if you choose to correct the minutes from 2014. I mean, December 14, 2020.
Board, do you wish to put
So
a
moved.
motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
So moved, all right. Second on that?
It was,
Second.
All right, thank you. So all those in favor of correcting the meeting minutes from December 14th to,
I just want to know, was it actually just because it's incorrect, or was it just because, is that what we actually said during the meeting? Because if it's just what actually happened at the meeting, then the minutes would be correct, not looking at the minutes. I know that,
Minutes are correct. This is just going to be like an addition to those minutes.
oh, so we're not correcting the minutes? Is that what the motion
all right,
said?
it's an addendum.
We're not correcting the
If
minutes?
this passes,
Yeah.
this will be noted on those minutes, on 12/14's minutes.
Oh, we can do that, yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was a correction, because that's
All
actually
right,
what happened.
Yeah, I misspoke. You're right, Julian, I misspoke. So all those in favor of approving that addendum, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries 400. So our next item, we're going to have to approve the budget so that we can make sure that this stuff goes out, because I think the Budget Committee is holding their public hearing tomorrow night. And this is sort of the exact opposite of what I discussed with encumbrances. The Budget Committee and auditors only have referral authority to us, but we have only referral authority when it comes to the budget. The Budget Committee is the one that sets the budget for the warrant. So I'm going to ask the board if they would like to re-vote every single department on this for, a documentation, or whether you wish to only address the 10 budgets that were amended by the Budget Committee. So Julian, what were you going to say before we
I don't know,
do
do
that?
I have what you have in front of you? I didn't get the new sheets after the last Budget Committee,
Well,
so I don't know every little
we-
change, because I
no, we
didn't
get
write
it
everyone down.
We didn't get it either, Julian.
Yeah, so how could I vote on a
So
new number?
we're just bringing the
Well,
one that we used initially.
what I got was actually from you, Julian, from the Budget Committee,
Well, it
from your
wasn't
last
it wasn't
meeting.
from me.
Pardon?
You just looked at the budget meeting, right?
No, you gave this to me from the Budget Committee meeting that they had last week. They went through all of these budget items, and they approved a certain amount. I got it
I
from
don't
you.
remember sending you anything.
Well, you probably don't remember that, but I wouldn't have
'Cause I've
gotten
never
it
seen
anywhere
that.
else. I got
Right.
it from you.
Really?
So,
Send me a copy of that, because I don't remember sending it.
yes, I'll send
Put it
you
out
back
there.
your own copy. I can do that. So, again, I'm going to ask, does the board wish to approve each department, or do they want to only take a look at what was amended by the Budget Committee? And I think I sent you guys out an email about this afternoon. So, do you guys have this stuff or not? Because we're going to have to vote on it.
Okay, so we have.
Do you want me to
have
copy this
two-
for you guys right
We have
now?
two budgets
No,
that
I
we
got
have
it.
never voted on, and then we have some budgets that have been lowered by the Budget Committee. Is that correct? Am I
We have
getting that?
amended department budgets, and I am not aware that we did not vote on two budgets. I think I checked with Jay, and I think one of the ones was a police budget, and I believe we did vote on that.
We did.
Yeah, and the ones.
500.
The
Yeah,
ones that I had was the trash.
okay, the trash we did
trash.
not vote on because we didn't have actual
Other one
numbers for
was,
that.
I believe it was government buildings, yes.
And government buildings, I thought we did vote on that.
No check mark on
And I'm
that.
not sure, Beth, I don't know if you have your copies of your stuff handily, but I thought we did vote on that. I have us approving 348,650. So while Beth is looking for that, do you want to just look at the amended budgets and vote on those, or do you want to go through each department?
Okay, government buildings was approved on October 19th.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
And it was for 348,650, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to recommend with the
last one.
lateness of the hour, because we still have a bunch more things to approve before a public hearing, that we just only look at what budgets were amended by the Budget Committee
Okay.
and vote to either amend or approve or whatever, okay? So if you guys are good with that, I'm going to go through each budget. Do you want me to Xerox this summary for you guys?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let me, just give me 2 seconds to do
It's
that.
staring at my phone.
Yeah, it's hard, I know.
Yes, may I have a copy too, please?
Sure.
Me too, please.
Thank you.
I really don't remember sending it.
Well, I wouldn't have gotten it anywhere else but from you, Julian.
I'd have got it from the budget chair.
Did Max send it out to everybody? Maybe she sent it out, I don't know.
It was sent to it was sent to Julian as the liaison.
Oh, okay.
If I see it, I'll know, maybe I'll recognize it. Is that something I sent you before the last budget meeting?
You sent it to me January 4th or 5th? It was January 5th you sent it to me.
It was
That's
before
what
the
we
meeting
discussed.
that I might have sent you something. I didn't send you anything after the meeting. Might have been after the previous meeting.
All right, well, here it is. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Can you give that to Freddie?
Thank you, sir.
All right, so, very quickly on this, the first column is the town manager recommendations. The second column was what the board approved. The third column is the budget committee recommendations. I inserted a delta column in there for any discrepancies that the budget committee may have voted up or down from our recommendations. And so the next column over is a revised budget that you may vote on or not, as the case may be.
So this first one, they increased it?
Yes, I know. So the first budget that was amended was the finance budget, and that is on page 5 if you have your copies of your budgets. And they increased the dollar amount that we recommended by $550. And I believe it was for legal fees that they wanted to add.
Okay.
So if I could have a motion,
Motion that we approve the revised budget for finance.
okay, for 183,
183,
375. Okay, may I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
I
right,
believe they added it because they wanted they wanted the budget committee to be able to go to an attorney.
yes, that's
That was
correct.
the discussion.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I remember, yeah.
All right, so that motion carries 400. The next item that was different and amended from our legal was our legal budget. That's on page 8 of your spreadsheet. And the budget was reduced from our recommendation of 81,000 to 75,000. So I want to,
Is that delta supposed to be negative?
well, there was a $6,000 difference.
So it's a negative, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So I don't know if you want to approve that or amend that, or,
Justification?
I believe that they felt that looking at the trend of the last several years, that it didn't warrant that. However, I don't think they took into account the fact that we have an unusually significant request for 91A request that has gradually ratcheted up over the last couple of months from $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000. We are required to make sure that we are complying with the law, and I think Mark explained during this budget committee meeting that we are not expert enough to know what is lawful and what is not with request to 91A, and we do need to have a specific legal expert opinion on what is allowed and what is not. And so that increase doesn't seem to be going away, so that's why we increased it.
If we did not approve that, what does it mean? What does that really mean?
We just stay with our original number. That's what our number and the budget committee
Yeah,
goes
there'll just be a
forward.
difference.
Because recommendations are only on the flat number, on the warrant. Okay, I understand. Okay,
The key is to try to sync up,
Yeah,
right?
it just
Yeah.
means we don't agree.
I make a motion that we do not approve
Second.
the finance,
All right, okay.
legal rather, I'm sorry.
All right, so that you are approving the budget for $81,000?
Correct.
Okay, and you seconded it, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, so that motion carries 400. Next line item is the planning board. There was a reduction of $5,054 in that. That is on page 11. I want to point out to the board that this budget, pretty much every line item is level funded, and the only difference is in the permanent and part-time positions. And I believe that we are under some contractual obligations with the collective bargaining agreement. And so we are required to pay raises. The board approved that collective bargaining agreement 2 years ago. The budget committee approved it 7-2, and the legislative body passed it as well. So it is my personal opinion that that needs to be put back in there because everything else is pretty much level funded. So I don't know if anybody else has any more comments about that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the BOS approved number,
Of,
97,561.
okay. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any more further discussion on that one? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries 400. Next item that was amended was the zoning budget, and that's on page 13. It's only a $500 difference, and I personally, when I looked at it, it looks as if the ZB notices and publications could perhaps absorb that little reduction. So I personally don't have any issue with removing $500 off that budget, but that's up to you guys.
Either.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Budget Committee's recommendation
For,
for zoning for the amount of $4,050.
no,
I'm sorry,
$3,000, yeah.
$3,550, sorry,
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
for zoning. Did you get it?
It's on page 11?
Oh, we're back to 11.
Page
No,
thir-
page 11 on the
13.
zoning.
Page 13.
Oh, I'm sorry, 13?
Page
Yeah.
13.
My thing has the same number on both sides.
Okay, nope.
It's 3550 and 3550 on both
Right.
on the sheet I got, so what's
Right.
the difference?
So, well, we originally approved 4,050. So Greg put a motion on the floor to reduce it by $500, and Jay seconded it. So if you're in
But
agreement,
it says it revised, it's already at 350, 550. We did it before.
No. Our number is 4,050. The Budget Committee is recommending 3,550.
It's the last column. That's,
It's the one that says zoning.
yeah, the colored column is what we approved. Oh, you don't have color, do you? Sorry.
Well, we have
I'm
a-
sorry, I know, I'm sorry.
It's shaded, it's
All right,
shaded.
okay.
Shady one, yeah.
Yeah, the shady one. So anyway, so there's a reduction in that budget of $500. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries 400. The next line item is government buildings.
Page 14 and 15.
I got a
And that-
question.
Go ahead.
The revised column, isn't that what we last voted on?
No,
Not the
we're voting
not
on
the
it
original.
tonight. No, we're voting on it tonight.
Oh, so how is it revised?
Because you want to either revise to be in sync with the Budget Committee or not. So what I did was I put down the differences in what they wanted to have for their budget, and then you guys can vote whether you approve it or not.
So the ones where we didn't approve the adjustment or the delta
Right.
that they
Yeah, okay,
made,
it's the title of the
she's
column.
She's going to change it back.
Yeah.
to the
There's a
original
number
amount.
under every one
Yeah.
of them.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so under general government buildings, there was a $56,465 reduction in what we had recommended versus what the budget committee approved. So I also want to point out to you, there's 2 pages to general government buildings. The first page indicates the actual building department. And if you look at the amount of salaries from the permanent position, the part-time, and the custodian overtime,
Yep.
the total comes out to $119,735 for the 2020 budget. The request for this year is only $118,800. So it's a reduction in the amount of salaries for permanent positions. The real issue comes about on the second page, where we look at the town hall annex at the bottom and the public works garage. If you take a look at that, we do not have history for expenditures for the electric and the heat and the maintenance of the town annex because we had never paid for those utilities, but now we do have to pay for them. So,
And
And we have the budget for
for
it.
the garage, we only started getting charged for that once the utilities were hooked up.
exactly. So I believe the budget committee may have looked at September's numbers, but I went into the last budget summary that Greg Colby gave us, and the annex heat and electric and maintenance for the end of November came out to approximately $6,059 for the last 4 months of the year. So he rightly extended that out by a threefold thing, and it came out to pretty close to what he's anticipating for the electric, the heat, and the maintenance. The same thing with the public works garage. We only have the last quarter of numbers to work with, and you can't just ignore expenditures for buildings that we own. We just added 2 new buildings, and you can't just blow those, expenditures off. We have to pay for those now.
A motion that we approve the Board of Selectmen's number for government buildings of $348,650.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Going to the other column.
May I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay,
You're making a motion for 348,650, the one we approved already.
okay,
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Okay. And Jay, you said you seconded that?
Yep.
Okay, so all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, so that also carries 400.
Figured we started to use the annex. We never used to pay utilities for annex because it was rented.
That's right. Okay, next item is advertising. The Budget Committee reduced this by $1,000 from our recommendation, and I am going to say that Greg and I are on the Town Report Committee, and we reduced the amount of town reports that we were publishing for this year. So to me, that seems a very reasonable reduction because we did reduce the amount of reports that we were doing. So if someone can put a motion on the floor.
I'll make a motion to change the advertising to $25,500.
Okay.
Second.
All right. If there's no more further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries 400. Next item is other general government, which is on page 21.
So much for putting whoever did this, putting the page numbers is so helpful.
You are so welcome. You guys owe me a drink at the end of the year for this.
I'll give you more than one drink.
Yeah, well.
This is great. No,
yeah.
really, seriously.
All right. Well, again, part of my job to do, so I'm happy to do it. Okay, so general government, page 21. If you recall, we removed $4,000 from the executive budget.
Yep.
And we added it to this budget, so it was kind of a wash.
Yep.
So there was a $6,000 difference in that, so that kind of almost didn't make sense, but, I don't know if you want to.
Is there any explanation for these?
I was going to ask, was there any explanation?
Yeah.
For what the numbers that I put down on here?
$6,000 decrease.
No, and I guess, to Julian's point, because he made an excellent point at the Budget Committee meeting last week. He indicated that we really need to take a look at these line items and adjust what the line items were to give the department heads a sense of why we are thinking what we're thinking. And, these decisions need to be based kind of on fact and on history and not just, oh, we're going to take $6,000 off of this without an explanation. So that's what in my opinion, that's what I tried to do if I was looking at this as a budget committee member. That's what I'd say is, okay, this is the line item that we need to reduce or add to.
I mean, they're taking out.
Can I make a comment for clarification?
Sure.
Okay, so the board recommended 196,000. The budget committee recommended a cut of 47,500.
No.
At,
No, this is general government, Mark.
yes. Yes, I'm going through the history.
Oh, all right.
Oh, that's way back there.
Okay.
So the board, let me start over. The Board of Selectmen recommended 196,000. At the budget committee meeting, where they made all of the recommended reductions, the budget committee recommended a cut of 47,500 to a number of 145,000. I spoke at that meeting and I explained to them about the IT upgrades, the technology, and COVID that necessitated for this number to be increased, and that was our justification. They made a motion to put the money back to the 196,000, and that failed. But they made a subsequent motion to put it back to 190,000. So that's how you ended up with the net reduction of the 6,000. And if I can give you my recommendation, and I did speak to Greg about this, we looked at the 190,000 versus the 196, and we think we can make that work. So we don't think that you should necessarily disagree with their number of 190,000, which is a $6,000 decrease.
Okay, good. Good.
It was
Okay, so that's.
victorious, and now we got most of it back.
Okay, so thank you. I forgot about that little history lesson, so I'm glad you remembered all that stuff. So I guess I personally don't see an issue. If you guys think you can make that number work, I would have no issue with it either. And I think the BOS revised number was 190,000. So if someone can put a motion.
I'll make a
on the floor.
motion that we, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion on the floor to change general government to $190,000.
All right, second?
Second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries 400. Next line item is the Highway Department, and there was a reduction of $33,669. And in discussing some of these line items with Mark and with Dan, and I think, Greg, you and I were there last Thursday at the meeting, it appears as if we have had a nice mild winter, and I shouldn't even say that out loud because we're going to jinx ourselves for 2021.
Oh, you did.
But, I know, but we did not use all of our snow budget, and nor did we actually utilize all of the paving budget. So I guess that reduction, in my personal opinion, is an acceptable reduction for this department, for this budget, for this year. And so I would welcome comments from you
Can I
guys about
ask-
that.
Can I ask Julian, where were they looking to take this 33,000 or 34,000?
There wasn't. There
Was
was
it a
just
flat, was it just off the top to the bottom?
Let me look
Yeah,
at
go
my
ahead,
little
Greg.
notes here, see if there was one, because there were a lot of them that it was just, oh, we think we should go down.
Okay, Greg Colby?
I'm looking.
My recollection is they felt with the $45,000 being encumbered that we could take it out of the paving,
That was
was
it.
what I
So
recall.
it was out of paving.
Okay.
That was it.
And that was not an unreasonable request, in my opinion. So,
So does that mean that we have $33,000 less of paving going on the roads next year,
this year,
this year?
yep.
In 2021, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my argument was, our road conditions keep deteriorating, or if you just
Exactly.
keep them maintained. But when, we had this discussion years back.
I know.
About the conditions of the roads, how they deteriorate exponentially. Once they get below a certain point, it costs even more and more to fix. I'm kind of against that reduction. I think the roads need to be fixed.
I'll make a motion that we approve the BOS approved number for highway of $842,165.
All right.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to say no on that because I think we can absorb that. So that motion still carries 3-1.
Okay.
Okay, trash. Oh, the bane of my existence here, trash. All right. So as you recall, we do not have, and we still do not have, any kind of a contract to put a dollar amount to this budget. But what I did do is I did a spreadsheet for you guys, and I listed potential expenditures based on some of our contracts that we were looking at. So we know for sure the last half of JRM is going to be approximately $415,000 because we have that number. And I used $2,100 of trash because I divided it up in half by 42. Potentially Casella's base rate and tipping fees for 6 months comes out to $340,000. The bulk pickup that we had agreed upon that we would do quarterly for
This is for the second half of the year?
Yes.
Oh, it's only 6 months. No, not 6 months,
Yeah.
it's 5 months.
Well, it's July through December.
You said July 30th.
First, no, July
July
1st.
First, okay.
First. And all
So
right,
it's
can you
6
hear me with
months.
this mask
It's
on?
6 months. No, I do
Yes,
hear what you're
okay.
saying. 6 months.
So,
Plus the 6 months of JRM.
JRM, so the first, from January to June 30th, JRM's going to charge us $413,000. Casella, if we should go with this, with his contract, for the next 6 months is $174,500 for base fee, $176,000 for tipping fees based at 2,100 tons of trash at 84 per ton. We agreed that we would have bulk pickup quarterly, and so I estimated that out for 2 bulk pickups for spring and fall, or fall and winter, whichever you guys decide, at $7,000. The recycling dumpster is at $239 a month with no extra fees or tipping fees or anything. So that came out to $1,554. The cart leasing program for 6 months came out at $18,436.20.
18,300 and what?
436, 18,436.20.
Okay.
So all of that stuff adds up to $792,490.20. And what we forgot to do when we made this budget is we forgot to add the $21,000 into the hazardous waste.
So we're missing one piece.
So
We're missing 2 pieces.
we're missing a bunch of pieces.
We're missing a second barrel, second cart, and we are missing a potential curbside recycle.
Yeah,
So we are not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to negotiate this until,
that was my
Next
point.
year.
That was my point to you guys earlier. That's exactly my point.
Give you some up-to-date information? Can I give you some up-to-date information on what the budget committee did?
yep,
Yeah.
So on a vote to 8-0-1, the budget committee increased that line item back to the 789,437. And you just said that the number was 792,490.20. So it's relatively close, except for those last things that you just mentioned about adding some things to it. But Greg, I saw Greg shaking his head, so I stand to be corrected.
Yeah,
But
it's not right, because neither one of those numbers included the 21,000 for hazardous waste on that last line item, and that's what the difference is.
I get that. My point is that they did increase the budget. They had reduced it by 31,169, and then they went back to the 789,437, which was the board recommended. That's what I have on my. So
Right.
Greg, is that correct?
Yeah, the total of 789,437 is correct, but that's only $750,000 for the trash removal.
Right, it
That's
did,
with 18,437 for the rental and $21,000 for household hazardous waste. So it's really, they increased it back up to 750 for the one line item that the chair has said should be 792,490.
Yep.
yes. And then again, it does not include the hazardous household waste line item for 21,000. So the real total on this budget should be $823,490.20. Does that make sense to everybody?
So let's, I almost don't want to get into this, but let's get into it anyways.
Okay,
We need to add another, what was the cost of the carts? 18,000?
18,436.20, and that's for only 6
We need
months.
to add at least another $18,000 if we're going to do recycling. We can get all the contracts we want to. If we don't have a barrel to put them in, I don't know how we're going to do that.
Well, so the caveat to that is if you do want to involve Casella in that, they will provide potentially those carts.
And we'll
So
pay
that's
for
why I tried to explain to you guys earlier that we need to do things linearly and sequentially, and we do not have time to invent this recycling thing between now and the 25th. That's why I was trying to convince you guys to vote for the trash contract now, because we don't have time to put this money in the budget. We don't even know how much money to put in the budget. And you can negotiate the recycling and everything else during the course of this year and implement it next year at the earliest or latest. For 6 months, I don't think it's going to break the bank. It's up to you guys, obviously, because I'm not going to be here to vote on it, but you need to think about that stuff.
I mean, we basically put the total cost of recycling back into this. I'm not sure that the budget committee whether the budget committee is going to balk at this.
I'm sure they will. Go
Well,
ahead, Julian.
I brought up the 21,000 during that meeting.
And you were
I
right.
gave the numbers you
You were
gave,
correct.
and they ignored me. The thing is, I really wanted to propose was, since the recycling thing is up in the air, and I didn't want the town to have its hands tied by the money not being there if we decided to go back to recycling anytime during the year, I would like to have seen an extra line put in for carts if necessary, and what it might be to add recycling. It doesn't mean we have to spend it. It just means it'll be there if we need it. Or else, you do it and the money's not there, guess what? You can't do it.
So the only other alternative I would suggest, if we can get it to an agreement on this, and I'm not sure we can, but hopefully we can, the only way we could address this would be through a warrant article. It would be a recycling warrant article. And they would basically raise the money through taxes to allow us to buy another barrel, another cart, and pay for the recycle.
Well, I hear that's in
I don't know
progress.
how else we can do this.
Well,
If somebody else has an idea, please tell me, but
Well, let me make a comment on this, that we do know that there is going to be a citizen's petition coming out. We don't know what the language is in that. And so I think before we make that decision, we need to see whether there is a dollar figure in the citizen's petition.
there is.
And so if there is, then that's would take the place of a warrant article per se. And if the people vote to approve that, that would be added, I think, into the operating budget. And Greg Colby, can you give me some legal advice on that? I know you're not a lawyer, but you're the next best thing to it. Or Mark, would that make sense that if there's a dollar amount attached to the citizen's petition, that would be added into the operating budget? Or would we have to check that out with an HMA?
Mark, would you like to comment?
Yes, let's all pass the buck because we don't know the answer to this.
That was a hot and sticky subject.
I know. I'm sorry, but I don't know the answer to this, but, I think that would be the most logical assumption.
Well,
Mark?
the way, I'm breaking it down piece by piece in my brain right now, that the warrant article, not knowing what it says, the warrant article would stand for some type of funding between July 1st and December 31st with respect to recycling.
Yeah.
And unless they're proposing something that's going to lapse over into the following year. So therein lies the problem. Are they gonna make a citizen's petition for 6 months for this budget season, or are they gonna make something that carries over? Because what do we do come January 1st?
Well, here's the concern that I have, is that we don't even know whether the citizen's petition is going to be considered legal, because it doesn't have a contract to go with it. So I would rather to get in front of this and say, here's our warrant to cover 6 months of recycling, and then they don't need the citizen's petition. It's redundant. And we would write the warrant so that it becomes part of the budget.
But then it ends in December 31st.
But then it ends December 31st, so
doesn't
then
help
what
you.
happens if we're sitting here next year in January, where the recycling ended with the
Exactly.
fund December 31st?
It has
you're
to
in
be
no
a
man's
year.
land. You're in no man's land.
Well,
The fiscal year and the budget year are different.
So I guess my suggestion is, could we wait to see what the citizens petition language is first? Or Greg, did you have a comment, Greg Colby?
Well, I was just going to add that we've got the fire department warrant article that says that the intention is that we are going to add it into the budget going forward. So if you were to do what Greg Town is suggesting and, notice it that this is going into the budget going forward, I don't see where it would differ from what we're doing already with the fire department.
So are you recommending?
24/7, 365.
Are you recommending a warrant article as opposed to putting the citizens petition in? Does that make better sense?
I'm giving food for thought.
Okay.
The problem is if they put a citizen's petition in, we cannot turn it down.
No,
Then it'd be
we
two
don't
warrant
expect
articles.
no,
to.
but
Then
at
there'd be
the-
two warrant articles.
But at the deliberative session, if there is already a warrant article to put that back into the budget.
I don't think you can by law remove a citizen's
I'm not
petition
saying
once you get to that point.
I'm not saying that. May I finish my sentence, please? Okay? If we have a warrant article that says we're going to fund recycling, when the citizen's petition comes up, the moderator is going to say, this is already being taken care of. Do we want to change this? And you simply have to change the dollar amount to $1, and whether it passes or it doesn't pass, it doesn't matter.
And as Greg Colby said, we can create the warrant language to say it will encompass July 1st through June 30th of 2022. So that will cover you for that year, and then you guys can figure out what to do later.
Right.
So, I mean, that maybe seems like the best way to do it. We just have to pick a number, and I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole.
I'm very, very concerned that if we just allow the citizens petition to go forward, it's going to be ruled as illegal because it doesn't have a contract to go along with it.
And that's an excellent point. That was one of my concerns as well.
And
So
we
go
haven't
ahead.
even, we haven't got the wording, so we don't even know how it's being worded. And we haven't passed it by NHMA or even town council to know whether this thing will get ruled illegally or not. So if we jump in front of this and say, all right, here's the amount of money that we believe that we are going to need to negotiate a recycling contract for 6 months, and that will go into the budget, at least people look at it and say, oh, yeah, there it is, there's recycling, we don't need this, we don't need this.
All
Yeah,
right.
go ahead.
Well, wait, no, excuse me. Wait a
Sorry,
minute.
I'm sorry.
I get to
I'm
pick
sorry.
this. You're not the chair
I'm
yet.
sorry.
Here. All right, Jay first and then Julian.
Do we know what the amount is in the,
No. I mean, unless someone
Warrant
has a sense of the citizen's petition and knows the amount. They have to submit it by tomorrow. That's the
Okay.
final date.
It's,
What
I
is it?
think I remember seeing it was like 230,000, something like, it was well over 200,000. I think it was like 230.
is,
It's
in
ballpark.
that circumstance, is it just incorporated into the operating budget and it's not,
No.
unless it says adding it to the trash line within the budget, won't it just get added to the bottom line?
Well, that's the question I just asked Greg Colby. With regards to the citizen's petition, we don't know what the language is of it.
Yeah.
And we can't change the language except for grammar and syntax. So Greg's thought about putting it into a warrant will allow us a little bit greater control over this, where we can say, this is going to span 6 months of this year and 6 months of next year. depending what that language is. Do you guys want to, we can wait and see what the language is on the citizens petition and then check with NHMA to see if we can even put this on as a valid petition. I mean, you have to put petitions on whether they're legal or not.
Right.
So we could hedge our bets by saying, okay, we'll put it on, but I guess you guys are incumbent upon writing up a warrant article for that 6 month this year, 6 month next year with a dollar amount, and I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. And then that means that if you add that to the budget, if it passes and you add that to the budget, now you guys have to find a contract to fit that number. So just don't forget about that too, okay? So I don't know, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to put it in as a warrant?
Well, before you get us to make a decision, I think it's important that you look at, if we do not do this, and the citizens petition does not get passed, is not considered legal, we have to wait 12 months before we go back into recycling.
And our hands get
Do you
tied.
want to do that?
No. I mean, if you guys are all hell-bent on putting back the recycling component, I don't think we can afford to do that.
Right.
What do you think, Jay?
Okay.
Why don't we wait till tomorrow to see what the wording is?
Yeah.
That's what I just
Then we
said.
meet next week, and we'll have
Yeah.
a meeting next
All right.
Monday, and we decide to,
All
we
right.
don't have a meeting next Monday, do we?
Well, no, unfortunately, it's a holiday, so we can't meet Monday, and there's all kinds of other board issues. So if you guys want to meet on Thursday, the 21st, we can discuss this. And actually, if we're going to hold a meeting on the 21st, it's almost 9:30 right now. Do you want to table the rest of these? You want to table the warrant articles, period, and vote on everything on the 21st, because it's getting late for you guys.
What does the budget committee need from us for tomorrow night?
They need us to finish this budget. So let's get back. I know, I'm getting off track now. Shame on me. The first thing we need to do is vote on the trash budget. And like I said, just the sole trash budget comes up to $823,490.20. Julian, what were you going to say?
Never mind,
All right.
I had it.
So we need to approve that number, because if you don't approve that number, you're not going to have enough money for the trash either.
Where does the 823,490 come from?
Okay, it's JRM for 6 months,
Yep.
Casella for 6 months with
Yeah.
base fee, tipping fee, bulk pickup, recycling dumpster, and carts.
Okay.
So that total comes out to $792,490.20. I did give you a spreadsheet on that, and I gave it to you a little
Okay.
while ago, but you'll have to dig it out of your emails.
So then, if we approve, you're suggesting a budget that's not in existence. We haven't agreed on that budget. Do you follow what I'm saying? We're revising this budget right now. That's what you want to do?
Well, if you do not approve a higher number than $789,437,
Yeah.
you are going to be, short like 50, 60 grand off of that budget, because you're not going to be able to do the hazardous household waste, and you're not going to have enough money to do the trash.
Okay. So let me make a motion that we approve a revised BOS budget of $823,490.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Jay, are you opposed, or?
No, I said aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes 400. So the last budget that was amended by the Budget Committee was the recreation budget. And I believe when the Rec Committee came in, Bill Coy came in to talk to us about this budget. Originally, it was level funded from last year, and he came in to plead the case about making the rec director's salary full-time as
Full-time.
opposed to part-time, and hopefully you guys remember that.
I do.
It's a difference of $7,382. And I have to personally, just my personal advocate for Jen, she has done a tremendous job about being incredibly creative about providing programs for the young kids as well as the elderly. And these are the two categories that are most heavily impacted by COVID-19. And so you can't just look at dollars all the time too, and I know you don't believe I'm saying that, but it's not just dollars, it's your emotional and physical and spiritual well-being that she's contributing to, and she's done a tremendous job about putting together programs for the kids, and she's also been very, very good about creating revenue streams for renting out the fields at Park. So in my personal opinion, $7,000 is a very small price to pay for, people's emotional health and well-being. So my personal feeling is I would keep our recommendation of 210,695, but that is up to you guys to.
I agree.
And what's the other 24 grand?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then again, it was a bottom line cut with
it was
no
not?
idea of where would this go, and I'm not a fan of that.
I think that number, isn't that the number we increased at deliberative?
Go ahead, Mark.
The answer is to reduce drainage work.
Postpone the drainage work?
They were going to postpone drainage work.
Okay, so,
We're-
Mark, you're in agreement with postponing drainage work there?
Sure.
Where is it?
Sure.
Where is it?
I don't think he meant that.
Well, don't we already have a warrant?
That's a $31,000 reduction. Where is it in the line item? In groundskeeping and maintenance? Is that where it is?
Well, no, let me clarify my answer, and I think I'll answer a couple questions. I think there's 24, and then there's the 7 that you talked about. And my answer about reducing drainage work, and I'm sorry if I just agreed with you, I didn't agree that we should just get rid of drainage work. I interpreted you to say, if it's reduced, can we just not do the drainage work? And the answer is yes. And the consequence is that we fall, a little bit behind on our being proactive with the drainage work. But, if we had to postpone the drainage work for another year, we would just postpone the drainage work for another year.
So
Because my understanding of the drainage was that we hadn't done it for so long, like cleaning out the swales, correct?
Yep.
It hadn't been done for so
That's
long, and a couple years ago, the effort was put in to clean out those swales, to get the drainage down. And is there money built, is there a plan for every couple years, 3 years, 4 years to dig out those swales, or is there a schedule for doing that? So are we in a year where that was planned to clean out those swales?
Well, I believe that part of the drainage work is to do the Cape Cod berming in the parking lot, which essentially are away from the fields and down into the lower drainage areas.
And that's warrant funded, Mark. We have a warrant for recreation for 50,000.
To do that.
And part of that 50,000 was to cover that berm.
Right.
That's right.
All right, I guess my point was, is that 24,000 part of a maintenance program to clean out the swales every couple of years? Because that's what I thought was a plan, when we did it the first time.
Yep.
The plan was to, every few years, we still need to dig those out.
It was probably the first time we ever did those.
Yeah, that was probably the first time they were ever cleaned, so. But,
So gentlemen, what would you like to do?
And I think they found that the stuff is returning really fast, the growth.
Can I just say this?
Sure.
So the original clean out of the drainage, we worked with a contractor that was already working on the site next door, and I believe that we paid somewhere around $8,000 to really clean out those swales. As you know, the softball project incorporated in some major drainage through the field. So it went north, it went in 3 different directions and went all the way down towards the Colley's Way. And then we most recently cleaned up the swale by the old softball field. So if the question is from the board, if we didn't do any more additional drainage work this year, are we gonna fall so far behind that it's gonna hurt us? That's hard to tell. We have more drainage pipes in the ground and more swales cleaned now than we have over the past couple of years. If you wanted to let this one slide by for a year, we could just evaluate it and come back, next year with our recommendation. I mean, I would rather that we forego this amount of money as far as the drainage work, and give it a vacation for a year, than some of the other things like the IT budget, which they did put the money back.
Is the Cape Cod berm, is that dependent upon the drainage work being done? Or can we put that in anyways?
Well, no, so I was just corrected that the Cape Cod berm is part of the warrant article that the Recreation's gonna ask for.
So what I'm saying is there any dependency between the money they cut and putting that berm in? Can we put that berm in and still have a problem in the field? We're just redirecting the water, right?
Yeah, I think Jay can take it from here.
Yeah. So the berm, it helps reduce water runoff from the parking lot into the fields.
Okay.
But what I'm talking about is the swale cleanout. So if there was a maintenance plan every couple of years to clean out the swales, you know, if we're having water, we don't put up the berms and we have water running into the fields and the swales are full, then we're gonna have backup onto the field again. So, you know, with the berms going in, I think it will help reduce the risk. And if we can forego it for a year, and that's why I'm asking for Mark's advice here, because he's more in depth with cleaning out those swales over the last few years, that, you know, if we can forego it, then let's do it for 1 year. But my concern is if we need to do it, let's do it. If not, then let's look at doing it next year.
Right. So basically, what I'm understanding from all of this discussion is that you guys are willing to forego $24,000 off of the rec budget, but that perhaps we may add the $73,82 to make our rec director full-time.
So what would that total be?
That will be $186,695.
186?
$695. So you're adding the full-time rec director's position, but you're taking out the swale work. So I don't know if that's acceptable to you guys or not.
Motion that we modify the recreation budget to 186,695 to include the full-time position for rec.
All right, may I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that motion will carry 400. And I don't have a total on the BOS revised budget, but then again, it is only recommendations, and our budget doesn't really count as far as the warrants are concerned.
So these will be sent to the budget committee for tomorrow?
Yes.
With an explanation for each one, what we wanted the money to go to?
Yep.
What our logic was?
Yep. And Greg Colby, could I ask you a huge favor? I know you're keeping track of all these pluses and minuses. Would you be able to provide the budget committee with our revised budget numbers? I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. So, all right, so board, there are two quick things that need to be done. I think we decided that we were going to have another meeting on the 21st to discuss landfills and warrants, and I think that's appropriate. There was also another line item about a revenue request for the fire suppression system. Mark, can that wait until January 21st to discuss and vote on that, or is that something that we need to do tonight?
Well, it's collecting revenue, so I would rather that it's done sooner than later, or at least you hear me out with at least let me, you got a memo in your package, but it's the board's decision. It's a simple adjustment of raising revenue for the fire suppression system that hasn't been raised in the last 15 years. So you tell me if you want to handle it tonight or you want to handle it on some later date. But we would like to send the bills out sooner than later.
Can I make a motion for that?
Yep, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we increase the fire suppression rate to .125.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
0.125?
Yep, 12.5 cents.
Yep.
Going from 12 cents to 12.5 cents, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that motion carries 400. And the last item that I would like to ask, and I know it's really late, but it's a discussion that is timely and that we may need to have this tonight. Greg Colby is required to fill out an MS-60A form for the Department of Revenue, and it's due technically today. And this makes a decision as to what type of auditing the town is going to use. There's 3 different options. The first option is to pay for an outside auditor. The second option is to elect town auditors.
Wait, no, you're backwards. One is locally elected.
Oh,
auditor.
I'm sorry. All right,
Two
must
is
have missed,
independent.
okay. And then the third option is to waive the audit altogether, and I don't believe that's an option for our town because we're just too financially complex. So Greg Talon had provided this board with a proposal for appointed auditors, and I'm going to turn that over to him right now so that he can explain it to the board and so that we can vote on it, so Greg Colby can finish his paperwork tonight.
So based on the comments and suggestions from both Julian and from Jay, and I think in a smaller part John, they felt there was a need for an internal auditor. They did not want to remove all of the internal auditors. So we would make a recommendation that we would appoint somebody with a financial background and have them report on a number of different areas, very distinctive items, and I had requested input from you if there was additional items that you want, we could put here, and then that person would make a report 10 days after the close of the fiscal year to the Board of Selectmen with their recommendations on these items. And that would give us an internal auditor, and we could basically control what they were auditing. And we would have somebody with a specific accounting or finance background.
All right.
So comments on that? You guys both got a copy of this, but
Yeah,
I didn't
we've
see-
had a copy of this for a couple of weeks, so.
Yeah. I mean, does this fulfill what you were thinking about?
Well, I think we've had positions in the past, and the town manager can attest to it. We had people that were in a position, and they really weren't qualified to do it because it was elected.
Right.
And they've actually, we had one thing, it's like, we almost do three of that position because the people either quit or it was too much because they didn't realize how much was to the job. So having someone that's qualified in a position is more appropriate, and I agree with that.
I was talking to Jim Peck, and Jim has a number of retired CPAs that could be potential
Right.
people that we might consider appointing.
I like the idea always of a second set of eyes, but they need to be a qualified set of eyes, or else they just,
Yeah.
it's not as helpful as you would think it would be. Just let's put it, even though, no matter how good the intentions may be, it's not as helpful if the person doesn't have the proper background.
Julian, do you think that this is enough for these auditing areas? Do you think that fills what we're specifically looking for?
I don't have it in front of me
Oh,
anymore.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Here,
but
you can take
I
mine.
looked it over, let me look at it real quick. I looked it over before, and
Here, those responsibilities. So we try to take the things like encumbrances, the revolving fund, capital reserve funds. So these are
Trust
things that
funds,
some
yeah.
of
the
our,
qualifications.
some of our past auditors have actually looked at, like when Jim
Yeah.
was an auditor, he actually looked at all the reserve funds.
I'm just
useful.
concerned. Yeah, you can finish. You finished? All right. I was concerned only that at some point, we may not find someone with that qualification, those top two, the degree parts.
Oh,
What happens if we don't?
I don't think that's a problem.
Well,
Seriously, I don't think it's a
people have to
problem.
volunteer to do these things, and I'll tell you what, some of these positions, as you know, especially unpaid,
Yeah.
it can be a lot of work. It's been hard in this town to find volunteers. And,
This would be a,
but it's better to have a qualified person or someone near, we can waive the requirement if they just fall short a little bit. But I don't want it to be hard, fast.
well, I didn't make like a CPA
Yeah.
be a requirement. It would basically just be an optional. It would be nice if they had it. And if they had some prior background working with town, that's great too.
Yeah.
But minimally, just having a financial or accounting degree
Yeah.
and some type of experience doing that, I don't think that would be a big problem finding. And the fact that this person would not be doing work in 12 months of the year, the message that we got from Steve Buckley from NHMA is that auditors should work at the end of the year and make their report. And they don't go off and look all the way through the year, looking for things to find.
Yeah.
So this would be probably a little bit easier, because we basically convince somebody saying, this is very finite, and it's really scheduled only at the end of the fiscal year, that you come in, look at it, and then make a report, and then you're done.
I'm just concerned, what is their interaction going to be with the paid auditors? Because it's kind of a parallel position, even though it may be at the end of the year.
I see it more that they would be reporting to the board in public so that the taxpayers can see, and then basically make a recommendation to us on things that we should do. So for example, if it's a recommendation for the encumbrances, we listen to that and say, all right, this is what, this person understands what they're talking about. Yeah, all right, let's fix that. Or if they see a specific area that they believe we need to rectify the process, the accounting process, fine.
Yeah.
That's a recommendation, we can act on that and do it. But I think it would be a good working relationship, not adversary type relationship.
And don't forget that your appointed auditor would look more in-depth at some of the issues that our paid auditors look at. They look at whether we follow general accounting standards.
Right.
And so they might not delve in really deeply to, okay, trust funds, how are we laying out the income versus blah, 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 blah. So that would be an advantage to you guys to have that person. And they'd only work a few weeks out of the year, because it's exactly what Stephen Buckley says. They don't do this on an ongoing basis year-round. It's a very specified period of time that you guys determine, and you get to decide, what areas you'd like them to look at. So, Jay, wait a minute, Jay, do you have any comments at all about this, or?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, go ahead, Julian.
What thing I might be looking at, because I can give you an example of something that happened in the past, where a regular order at the end of a year isn't going to catch.
Yep.
If this person should be looking at things a little bit along the way to see what we are doing, because we purchased a piece of equipment a bunch of years back that really was not done right. And it then, because the warrant article didn't support the amount, and then they decided, the Board of Selectmen voted, well, we'll take it out of this other line item, and then in the end, it didn't actually happen. It was never taken out of the line item. It was basically general fund money that was spent inappropriately in the end and the bottom line, even though, because nobody ever actually did what they said they were going to do. And a regular auditor coming in after the fact wouldn't have known that without seeing what happened at meetings. So a town-appointed auditor who would be keeping track of what's going on in the town would catch something like that, where an outside auditor wouldn't, because they didn't know what the discussions were going on when it was happening.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So is there any further discussion before we put a motion on the floor for this? Go ahead, Jay.
So, right now, we have a firm we contract with to do an audit, and we have local elected auditors. So now we're going to have a third
No.
appointed local auditor. So this is to replace the local elected.
Correct. That gives you a little bit more of a modicum of control, as Greg said, to direct the work and also to qualify them as far as experience is concerned.
So at this point, have we had any reports from our local elected auditors on, I've seen an email about encumbrances, but
That's it.
That's it.
all we have.
have they come to do a presentation,
Not that
or?
I'm aware of, no. I believe they did a presentation in April of last year.
Yeah, but
And
this is for this year?
This is for this year,
this year.
yes.
Okay.
Do you have any more questions, or?
Is there any plan in the future to come give us a presentation on auditing activities or signing of special documents that they need to sign off on?
That is completely up to the board.
The MSA, the MS60A, once we decide which one of these two items that we should be using, then that's what the town is basically saying to DRA, saying we're going to use a CPA to do our annual audit.
And what have we been doing the last few years?
Did you get a chance to read the background?
Yeah.
Oh, you did, okay. So if you look through the town reports, you'll find that very, very, very little work was done, if any. Basically, people just signed off and basically said, yep, the accounts are okay. And I gave an example of that. More recently, the auditors have done nothing. Like Gary Ingham was an auditor and never did a thing. And that's kind of after we appointed a professional CPA firm. From that point on, we elected people, but they really didn't fill this out or do a report or make any recommendations. It was more of a, yeah, I got elected, so now I can sign this sheet.
Right.
And I think this personally addresses the issue that the board wanted a, quote, second set of eyes. And I think this more than satisfies that desire of the board to do that, but with some teeth to it. Because you at least can control, you know, like I said, the education, the experience, and you can direct that person that you do appoint to say, we'd like you to take a look at this and that and thus and such and report to the board. So I think it's the best of both worlds, in my opinion, where you get the professional audit and you also get a second set of eyes in here, but with some teeth to it.
It's important that you get somebody that
knows what
will
they're
work with you.
doing,
Like,
yeah,
they have
yeah.
the same agenda that we have to help the town.
Right,
Right.
right. So if there's,
And basically, they could inform us without some report at the end of the year, getting a slap on the hand from the, some of the auditors say you did something wrong. If this person can during the year saying, hey, this doesn't look right or something, make you aware of it.
Exactly.
And if the person's correct, we adjust right away and we don't have a problem, even though our last audits have been perfect. We've had no
Exactly.
discrepancies
Exactly.
for years now.
so if there's no further discussion, could I have a motion on the floor to appoint?
So I'll make a motion that based on what we just have discussed, I would propose that the select board appoint an internal auditor position with required financial and accounting background and a defined set of auditing responsibilities as listed on the proposal. Further, that the appointed auditor provide an annual report of recommendations and findings to the select board 10 days after the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, wait, poor Beth is like freaking out at that motion. So
Okay.
please, if you could give her a copy of that written
Yeah.
motion so she knows what it says,
Copy?
that would be great.
It's in the packet.
Yes, it's in that
Is it in the
package.
package? Okay. All right, and Julian,
Well,
did
if
you,
you made a motion,
yes.
then it's got to get seconded first.
Did you want to second it?
I'll second it.
All right, okay, so if there's no further discussion, all those in,
Well,
oh,
we have
one discussion, hold
What
on.
happens at town meeting with the ballot?
There'll be nothing
The
on
elected position would be removed from the ballot as of March, what is it, 7th, 8th, 9th, whatever we vote?
And Peter and Bob's terms expire in March. So we're not taking away any terms from them.
All right, so,
And the only thing else, is there a term associated with this appointment?
I think it's a matter, I think that person would work to the favor of the select board.
Yes.
We basically
So we're going to leave that
Yeah.
as a
Yes.
future decision?
yes. He works at the pleasure of the board. Exactly. All right, so if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, so that motion carries 400. And so Greg Colby, if we may direct you to properly fill out that MS-60A with the request that we have a certified public accounting firm do our official town audit, I think that our business is done. Yes? Okay, thank you so much. And it's really late tonight, so I'm going to table all the rest of our agenda until the 21st, if you guys are comfortable with that. And we will go over all of the warrants at that point in time and put the numbers in for then. Unless you want to continue, but go ahead.
I just feel a little uncomfortable, a little bit, and everyone else can chime in on it, that with all the things that are going on and we're trying to hammer out this year, that going 2 weeks is a long time. I don't really want to put everything off to the end.
All right, so, yeah,
See, I don't mind. I say everyone lives in town.
yeah,
And if it's just a short meeting, so we can get some things done.
All right.
Because I really don't want what's going to happen next, what's going to pop up next, and all of a sudden we get another long meeting again, and then we're not going to get what needs to be done in a timely fashion.
Okay.
It's concerning me a little bit.
All right, and I think I would have a tendency to agree with that as well. So if you guys are okay with the meeting on the 21st, we'll finish off the warrant articles, and then we'll still meet on the 25th.
Yeah.
But Greg needs to have this stuff done to post the warrant and the budgets
Yeah.
for the 25th, so we need to do it on the 21st. Go ahead, Jay.
And I wanted to agree with Julian's sentiment. It's just
Yeah.
because I think, this was a big agenda, and,
Huge, I know.
things go sideways and we have to move stuff out or whatever,
Yep.
but I think if, and we've recently had bigger agendas in last meetings, so I think if we have more frequent, shorter
Okay.
meetings, we can get through the stuff a little sooner.
All right.
It gives us a little more visibility with the public,
Sure.
too, as far as every week instead of every 2 weeks, and I'm okay with that, but if we don't have a lot on our plate over the next couple of weeks, I'm fine with an every other week thing, but it just looks like we have a lot in front of us right now, so.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. And the only reason I did not schedule a meeting on the 4th was because we didn't have all of our numbers to vote on.
Right.
And that was the rub. And then, of course, next Monday's the 18th, and it's a holiday, so that really messed us up. But if you guys are good with the 21st meeting, we'll do that at 6:30, and we'll have the other one on the 25th, and we'll try to not have you guys stay here so long.
Before we go on, because all the discussions, it's all a blur now.
Thank God Vimeo is forever.
As far as concerning the recycling, are we going to do a warrant or not do a warrant? I know what happened, but it's all a blur now.
Wait, stop. I think we all recognize there's probably a need for a warrant. Jay basically said, let's wait until tomorrow.
All right.
So that's
Yeah.
what we.
Okay, I get
that's what
that.
we agreed to do, wait
I got a
till
budget
tomorrow.
committee meeting
You don't
tomorrow.
have to if you don't want to.
Could I
Throw it out
suggest,
there.
Can make the warrant anyways.
wait till, can I suggest tomorrow at a budget meeting that we possibly just put a line item in there to add money to the budget? I don't think they'll go along with it, but would this board be an objection for me to suggesting it for recycle in case we do it? Because if they put it into the budget, you won't need the warrant. I mean, it's not a budget line item, that's not required, but it's there if we need it.
The only rub to that is you don't know what type of dollar amount you're going to put in there, and they have a public hearing
Yeah.
next Tuesday. So
Yeah.
I think that might not be the best solution. I think, as we agreed, or I think by consensus, we said, let's look and see what the citizens petition says, and if we feel that it's not appropriate, we can add a warrant with more specific language that'll cover a year and a half span, and we'll have a little bit maybe more numbers to work with, and then that way we hedge our bets on both ends, but to just add it into a budget's not appropriate, in my opinion.
My rumor is that this budget, this petition has already been in, it's already been signed,
Yep.
there's already some kind of amount associated with it,
Right.
and I'm assuming it's already submitted. I think we should have been able to see it already.
Exactly.
For all I know, it's downstairs in an office down there, and we just didn't get it submitted to us, and it would have really helped if we had been able to see it.
Yep. No, it
And
would've.
that would be for the future. I think if there's someone, as soon as someone puts something like that in, we should at least get to view it to see what's going on. Because it affected our decisions tonight a lot, so.
The warrants are not as critical as your budget. All right, yeah, sorry, guys, but, we're still discussing this stuff. So the warrants are not as critical on your budget meeting as your budget. Your budget's your primary public hearing. All right, because the warrants will be discussed at deliberative. All right, honey. Good night. Good night. All right, that was Laurie Millette concerned that we didn't have warrant budget numbers for the budget committee for their meeting tomorrow, but in my opinion, and Greg Colby, you can correct me, and Mark, I don't think that the warrant articles are as critical for the budget public hearing as it is the budget, and so we can discuss the warrant articles at deliberative session.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
I
so I
mean-
think we're good. Is that okay, Greg Colby? Whatever we want to do, or we stay here till midnight.
I don't know, and I don't have all the information in front of me, so I can't.
Yeah, and actually, we don't have all the information really either, so, point well taken by Jay.
Comment.
Pardon?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
So I did represent to the budget committee that the board was gonna, take up the landfill article, tonight and, decide on a contract so that we could put that warrant article information, together. And I also said that the, board would be taking up the trash contract. So, I'm just telling you what I told them because that was the original plan.
So we're just going to say that you lied to them, okay?
Yeah, but I have a video that says I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead, Julian.
Well, I think if we give it the most current warrant articles that we have up to this time,
And we have.
they can look at those and vote on them. They could have done it last meeting.
They actually did vote on all the warrant articles,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
had held back one, and we actually have 3 more warrant articles that were just presented to us. So I think for them to be able to do that tomorrow, it's not possible. And as I said, I don't think it's as critical with warrant articles as it is with the budget committee, because the budget numbers have to be locked and loaded for them for tomorrow.
I think some of the end of year numbers could be given to them for tomorrow. If
And
Mr. Colby
they
will
have
do it,
most
yeah.
of that. Yeah,
That
they have
they
most
can
of
have the
that.
end of year numbers and things like that, and that pretty much is enough for them to decide on a lot of things.
All right.
And
So
we do as much as we can.
during the budget committee, it's going to be really important that you represent what our increases were, our decreases were, and what our reasons were behind it. Because for the ones that we did not agree with them, it shouldn't just be we didn't agree with them. It should be, here was our reasoning.
So hopefully you took good notes on that. All right, so if there's no other business, gentlemen, I am going to adjourn this meeting at 9:55 PM, the latest meeting I think I've ever had, and I'm sorry it took us so long, but I think some of these things needed to be discussed. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 9:55, and we will re-meet again on Thursday, the 21st at 6:30 PM. Thank you both, Greg and Mark, for staying so late. I really appreciate that. You have a good night, guys.